All right, good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. It's 9:02 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Across from me is County Manager Leonard Hernandez and Assistant County Managers Jennifer Walker and Josh Cummings, Clerk of the Board Amy Davis, Commissioners Klaus, Mejia, Grant, and Fournier on Zoom. And we have our meeting recorded and will be posted to the YouTube channel within 24 hours. Written public comment may be received up to 2 hours in advance of the meeting and distributed to the board. Action may be taken at this meeting. First up this morning is a review of the business agenda for next Tuesday's September 30th board meeting. So we'll pull that forward. And we have a calling the meeting to order 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Mejia, a land acknowledgement and approval of agenda. Public comment related to items on the agenda and county manager's update are kind of standing pieces. There is no presentation.
Correct. This is a fifth Tuesday, so there are no proclamations.
No proclamations. County manager, any update you're planning to present?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a quick update on Medic One's ultrasound accreditation, and then a couple of updates on some transportation projects that our public works team have worked so hard to complete.
Okay, any questions from the board on any of the preliminary items? All right, consent item, we have 1 through 5 under consent agenda 4. And item 1 is a set of public hearing on 2025 periodic comprehensive plan update.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ashley Rye, Community Planning and Economic Development Director. This is an agenda item to set a public hearing for the comprehensive plan update, which we've been holding a series of work sessions on. Given the noticing requirements in the Nisqually Valley News, we are hoping the board will go ahead and set that public hearing. That way we can start advertising it in the community and you can start hearing from the public. So the hearing would be set for November 4th. And the final work session that we have planned is actually occurring later this afternoon. And that'll be on the housing piece.
Okay, questions for Ashley? Commissioner Mejia?
Not for Ashley specifically, but we have another on the agenda that's set for the same date. I believe this public hearing might have a lot of community input. So I'm wondering if this one or the other public hearing set for the same date could be moved.
We know what the other one is, Madam Clerk?
Another public hearing item to be set for November 4th is the proposed ordinance amending Thurston County Code related to the sanitary landfill operations. I'm sure we can work with staff offline and see if.
Or just change the order.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Just have
possible
that
we could
go
just do
first.
that one and not expecting much public comment. Commissioner Fournier?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to commend Ashley and her team. All those comp plan meetings and presentations, they really have gone above and beyond, making information available to us and to the public. So I just wanted to mention that and say thank you.
Yeah, Chair, we can switch the order, have the solid waste item go first and then have this other item go second if we anticipate, which I agree with Commissioner Mejia, we should anticipate comments on that item.
Okay. I would like to ask about the kind of process from there to the, I mean, you know, I know there was a goal to get to some sort of finality to something by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And can you talk more about that? Because there is going to be a lot of public comment and the commissioners, obviously we've had high level overviews. We've had a lot of one-on-ones with constituents, but we're not sure what we're going to hear. And I haven't necessarily, you know, I've been dug down knee deep into several pieces of the comp plan so far, but not every piece. So if there's follow-up needed or discussion, what does that look like and what would be the consequences of not completing it by December?
Yeah, so the goal is to complete it by the end of the year. That's the deadline set by the state. I think we will hopefully have enough time, especially if we have the public hearing at the beginning of November, that gives you until I think December 18th as a board to hold additional work sessions to digest all that community feedback, have discussion, and still be able to meet that deadline. The board essentially can take one action per year on comprehensive plan amendments. And in addition to this big package, there's also the capital improvement program and 2 rezones that'll be coming before you. So I think we're still gonna aim for that goal. And if for some reason we don't need it, then we will work with Commerce to figure out what the fallback is. And if there's any.
Because it'd probably be a whole nother year.
It won't be another year. You can go ahead and adopt your comprehensive plan package the beginning of next year, but that means you wouldn't be able to take another action next year. So if other applications come in.
You'd have to know what that looked like.
So that's why we really are trying to aim for the end of this year, because we are gonna have joint plan updates next year that we're already aware of, and we'd hate to have those then get delayed into the beginning of 2027. So we
Okay.
are trying to forecast that. but-
Yeah, all right, well, it sounds, my concern was just that if that's the goal, like that we have, that we're planning for building in time for the commissioners to spend, reasonable amount of time to discuss, and it sounds like you're planning for that, so.
Yep, and we are available between now and November 4th if there are other questions that the board has and wants to get in more information on
Yep.
any particular item.
Yeah, thank you, that's a good heads up for the commissioners, if you have. Just look ahead for this, and there may be some time needed to be proactive rather than reactive on this one, because it's a big project and we're trying to shoot for the end of the year, so.
And to consider your request on what the board might hear, we might consider a roundup before the November 4th public hearing.
Yeah, we can do
Regarding written public comment, or,
Yeah, we can do a workshop where Ashley and the team can come and talk about what they're hearing and the input they're receiving, just to give the board time. We might want to do that a couple of weeks before the meeting so that if commissioners want to follow up with Ashley following week, they have time to do that.
you guys have been touching on that as you go through the pieces, so I'm aware of that.
And at this point, a lot of folks are interacting directly with their commissioners, so it might also be a good opportunity for the commissioners to share what they're hearing
Yep.
in their constituent meetings.
Okay, great. Any other questions on this item from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2 is contract amendment with Capital Region ESD 113.
Good morning. I'm Friday, Director of Public Health and Social Services. And this is a request for the board to approve amendment number 1 for the contract with the Capital Region ESD 113 to renew funding for the period of July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026 in the amount of $85,000. The purpose of this renewal contract is to support ongoing efforts in preventing youth cannabis and commercial tobacco use in Thurston County. The funding supports 0.3 FTE of an education and outreach specialist 2, who works closely with community partners and schools to implement these strategies. Thurston County has received the funding for this program for over 20 years. And I have Lori Montoya, who's our community health nurse manager, here to help answer any questions.
Received from state?
This is state funding. It's passed through ESD 113 and then given to us.
Oh, from them to
Yeah.
us, not, okay. And then this is how much of an FTE did you say it supports?
0.3.
Okay, other questions from the board? All right, thank you. Item 3 under consent is a set of public hearing for proposed ordinance amending Thurston County Code Chapter 8.12 sanitary landfill operations. Aha, this is the one. Commissioner McGee was talking about.
Good morning, Karen Weiss, Public Works Director. So we are asking to set a public hearing for November 4th to consider updates to Thurston County Code 8.12, which is related to sanitary landfill operations, otherwise known as solid waste operations. The proposed ordinance will remove solid waste rates and charges from the code in addition to some minor updates to administrative items. Instead, the rates will be set by board resolution, which provides a more streamlined and efficient way for rate setting. The change won't impact rates at this time. Proposed rates for 26 and 27 have been incorporated into the budget development process, and a resolution with those rates will be presented to the board for consideration as a part of the budget process. This action aligns all of the rate setting adoption process within Public Works, and we just enacted a similar change for stormwater rates on September 16th. Any questions?
Any questions on item 3? Hearing none. Voucher lists on items 4 and 5 for August 25th and September 1st. Any questions from the board on those? I think item 5, there's a on the contact, maybe that's a
Oh, thank you. We'll update
change.
that.
Okay, hearing no questions there. Let's go to department item under 5, central services, closing and purchase and sale agreement for 805 Plum Street property acquisition.
Sorry.
Good morning, Kim Burnett, Central Services Director. We're requesting approval to authorize the county manager or designee to proceed with the closing of the sale per the purchase and sale agreement executed on July 29th, 2025 for the property located at 805 Southeast Plum Street in Olympia for the purchase price of $34,900,000 plus closing adjustments. And we're also requesting authorization to approve all lease amendments to reflect the change in ownership and authorize the Director of Central Services to execute the amendments and any future amendments that do not exceed 10%. In July, the board authorized the county manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement and pay a $500,000 deposit, initiating the inspection and research of the property and the buildings. This due diligence confirmed that the buildings would meet the needs of the county, resulting in the board directing the county manager to proceed with the final steps in the process of purchasing the property. All current leases will also need to be amended to reflect this change in ownership. These buildings and the associated property will be utilized to co-locate several county departments and offices and provide for expansion in the future.
And Chair, this is a huge step forward for the county. What I wanted to do is just clarify that the proceeds that we're using to purchase these buildings were an action of the board a couple of years back to initiate a bond. And those bond proceeds can only be used for facility enhancements, facility purchases, or renovations. Those bond funds cannot be used to address any type of structural deficit or ongoing operational issues that we're facing. The reason I'm highlighting that is because I know that as we work through our organizational budget situation, there is this big ticket item could bring awareness to say, well, why is the county making this step? This step will actually consolidate the county's campus back so that it's in one area altogether. It also provides a future home for the general service offices that are in this facility, which in the long run will save the county significant on lease payments and other out charges. In addition to this situation, we believe that the county is getting a much better value in that it's investing its dollars into actual assets that will have a return on investment in the immediacy, because there are some leaseholders there, as mentioned, that will bring in some revenue to the county, and that's still being worked out, the exact amounts. And I know that our budget and finance manager is here, and so I think it's just good for public transparency. Just to ask you, Summer, if you concur with the fact that these bond funds can only be used for either a remodel, which the county was working on, or purchase new facilities like this, and cannot be used for ongoing deficit issues.
I do agree, I concur, and that is spelled out very clearly in the resolution language back in 2022, resolution 16167, and also through communication from our as that the project is authorized to finance funding, acquisition of property, remodel various county buildings, etc.
So Chair, would you believe that this is a step forward for the county in being efficient with its resources? Because the buildings that the county is going to purchase also have the ability for the county and its departments and offices to have additional space needs that our internal county facilities plan out to 2050 showed our real needs and demands on the county. So rather than us having to go out and lease other space or look for other additional acquisitions, this move both consolidates and I think utilizes the remaining proceeds of our available bond. The action the board took in 2022 is part of the reason why the county was able to move so nimbly through this process, because it already had funding available. And so the forethought of the board then to position itself to solve one of the county's major issues, which was space and facilities needs, in a current situation where the current structures of the majority of the county's courthouse complex, major systems are failing, like roof, HVAC, et cetera, is in one strategic move addressing so many different areas. And I know our Assistant County Manager, Josh Cummings, has been working in detail with Rick Thomas and his team. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Other than thank you and appreciation to the board for the direct action and the coordination with all the stakeholders has been part of the process that we've been able to go this quickly on this positive investment for the future. Thank you to the Central Services team as well.
Summer, can I ask, the bond repayment, are those REIT one funds that are related to?
It is currently, I believe,
That was my recollection, and that just kind of, REIT one can only be used for county facilities, so I mean, it's not like the bond could have been issued for something else. The funding source to repay it comes from a strictly limited source that's related to county facilities, not anything operational, so.
That's a great point, Chair. I think what sometimes the larger public doesn't always isn't made aware of county funding is some funding sources come through that are very specific and dedicated to certain uses. So in this case, with the REIT funding, the board decided to use that funding to solve a major facility need that it had. And in doing so, try to minimize any type of need to go to the public for a larger purchase at this time. So
The REIT stands for Real Estate Excise Tax, and they're fees paid when folks do refinancings or home purchases and come through the auditor and et cetera, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for staff on item 5.1? Okay, we'll go to item 6.1, Community Planning and Economic Development, Resolution for 2025 Flood Hazard Mitigation Plan Update.
Good morning again, Ashley Rye, Head Director. So this is a follow-up to the public hearing that the board had last week where there was a number of public comments shared. And so we decided to create some space for the board to have a follow-up discussion and not take any action until next week. So there is a planning session tomorrow afternoon where we'll be able to talk about the public comments that were received, how they're reflected in the plan, and answering more detailed questions on it.
Okay, and then if there's concerns, the board could remove this item or do something else with it, but it's there in case we're ready to proceed forward after tomorrow's discussion.
Yes.
Okay, any questions for Ashley on how to set up on that?
For clarification, what is the deadline from FEMA?
October 15th
Right.
is the expectation that we have it adopted so that we can maintain our community rating.
Yep.
Community rating system.
So we could punt.
There's one more board meeting,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay, any questions? I see none. Thank you, Ashley. Public Works is next. Contract award of owner advisory and construction management services for the WARC reconfiguration project. And we.
Good morning, Karen Weiss again, Public Works Director. We're asking the board to approve a contract with Turner and Townsend Heery LLC for a maximum of $600,000 for owner advisory and construction management services for the WARC reconfiguration project. A reminder, this project will reconfigure and expand the Waste and Recovery Center at our Hawks Prairie site to reduce ongoing maintenance and expand facility capacity. It will also eliminate residential and commercial cross traffic to minimize customer wait times at scales, reduce traffic issues, and improve customer access and safety. The contract award is in response to a statement of qualifications that was issued. We received 4 responses. And companies were evaluated based on established criteria. Turner, Townsend and Heery, or TTH, was the top rated company. This consultants will assist with selecting the most appropriate project delivery method, a project review committee application that needs to be submitted through the Department of Enterprise Services of the state, project procurement, and managing the design and construction phases of the project under an anticipated design build alternative project delivery approach, which is being implemented to address a complex project that needs to maintain business continuity through its implementation. Again, we expect construction to happen mid-2027 through the first part of 2028. And we did provide the board an e-brief on this on September 16th. Questions?
And the funding is.
Solid waste tipping fees funded part of a $20 million project.
Questions from the board for Karen? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment at that point related to general matters, commissioners' community reports. And then we have a public hearing at 3:30 related to program year 2024 HUD annual action plan substantial amendment.
Chair, just real quick, after this item, we'll have two additional items to address as part of the agenda review. Hello again, Jen Freiheit, Director of Public Health and Social Services. This is a request for the board to move to close the public hearing and accept the program year 2024 annual action plan substantial amendment authorizing the Department of Public Health and Social Services to submit the amendment to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. In September of 2024, HUD approved Thurston County's program year 2024 annual action plan, which outlines specific projects to be funded with Home Investment Partnership and CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant funding. Included in the approved plan was the Low Income Housing Institute Maple Court Shelter Conversion Project for $781,573 and some change in home funds. And I have Alex Purse here, our Affordable Housing Program Manager, to answer any questions.
Mr. Fournier, saw your hand.
Sorry, no, it wasn't on that. I just, as we were going over the agenda, you had gone past the part where we talked about the public comment period for general subjects. And I just wanted to try to take a second and see if there was any feedback anybody had about our change, because we switched from public comment before commissioner items until after. And I seemed fine to me, but I wasn't sure if anybody else had any feedback.
All right, we'll get to that in a moment.
Okay,
Any
yeah.
questions on the HUD item?
No, sir.
Any other board members? Nothing's in here that we haven't. Yeah, okay. We haven't talked about in another context. Okay, then thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so before we go to Madam Clerk, let's just, so are you, Commissioner Fournier, you're just talking about the flip flop of the community reports?
Yeah, we made a slight change, and so I was just wanted to see if we could double back and see if anybody had any thoughts, if they liked it, if they didn't like it. For me, it worked fine.
Yeah, I liked it as well. I think that commissioner community reports are flexible in a sense. I mean, we're all doing so much stuff. We could each talk for 15 minutes, or we could just talk for 30 seconds, and that gives us a chance to kind of flex that based on whether we've got a public hearing coming up or whether we just had a whole bunch of general public comment, which is obviously, I think, more important. So I thought it made sense, but any other feedback?
Yeah, I agree.
Good. All right, well then we'll stick with that for time being. Madam Clerk, you had more items.
Yes, one additional item to this agenda for September 30th that we have is a public hearing for the proposed resolution of findings and determinations for the Long Lake Management District number 25. This is just the next step in the 4-step process to create the LMD.
That's going to be on here?
Yes.
So it's another public hearing?
Yes, it'll be a second.
And why isn't it on here? Just out of
It's,
curiosity?
not in here now while staff were working with legal to confirm noticing requirements. It was previously included on an earlier agenda in September, and we pulled the item to address certain noticing requirements.
You think we'll be square for
We
the
are square
public
now.
hearing next week?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, any questions from the board on having an additional public hearing related to Long Lake Management District, Long Lake?
Yes. Long Lake.
LMD formation, reformation, okay.
And Chair, we talked internally about, should we push this back? Because we didn't want to, we don't like bringing information that hasn't been shared with you, at least from the Friday. But in order to keep the Lake Management District on schedule, there's steps they have to take, and doing it, it's appropriate to do it next week on the business meeting, and it gives them time and space to continue all the other steps, which ultimately will affect their ability to get the revenue in.
Yeah, actually, thank you for the reminder. You have deadlines for the tax, for how
Yeah, which are
very rigid
very
and
extremely important, yeah.
how the treasurer's office has to go about the
Yeah.
junior taxing district assessments and all that. So,
Assessments, yeah.
all right. So that sounds good. Then what was the second thing you had?
Second item is an advisory boards item. There were
That's what we're up to next, or no?
not on the agenda, but I'd like to include it as part of this agenda review.
Okay,
So there are two applicants for the Noxious Weed Control Board. One is a reappointment for Jennifer Colvin as the District 4 representative, and one
Yes.
is for JW Foster as, who's applying for the Weed District 5 representative. And as a reminder, the Weed District boundaries are different than the Commissioner District boundaries. And Ms. Colvin was appointed at the end of 2024 for the remainder of an unexpired term, which expires at the end of October. Statute says that the board must take action on these appointments 30 days prior to their expiration. So adding those items to the September 30th agenda meets that requirement. JW Foster is a new applicant for the District 5 representative. And as you know, we don't always receive kind of interest in applicants for the Noxious Weed Control Board.
yep.
And applicants go through a lengthy process to be considered. They must petition and receive signatures. The Noxious Weed Control Board themselves holds a public hearing on the candidates first, and then they are brought to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration.
So all that's occurred for Mr. Foster.
It's all occurred, and both applicants are recommended by the Noxious Weed Control Board.
This is significant. Is this will that all positions be filled, right?
Yes,
That's since I've been at the county, that has not been the case. Tim has been trying.
Yeah.
So this is fantastic.
Yeah. And these are good applicants in my estimation. I know both of them. Commissioner Grant?
Just quick question, will there be a conflict of interest if he ends up mayor of Yelm?
I'm not sure about that. We can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine, but it might be a question to shoot to legal.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Okay, I don't need to say that I'm not an attorney, but the list of incompatible offices is something that's published on the Municipal Research Service Center's website, and there is no mention of any of those offices being
not on there?
incompatible. Yeah, they're not on there, but it of course is always a good idea to do the prudent thing and run it by legal.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. So just to be clear, you're saying put these on for next week's agenda potentially?
Yes, and we can return next week with an answer to that question.
Okay, and that may be an item to follow up on.
Yeah.
Say next week, so flag that one. Okay, anything else, Commissioner Grant? We still just legacy hand, okay.
No, sorry.
Got it, okay. All right, does that cover?
That does, thank you.
That covers item 1 of this morning's agenda, so there's nothing else regarding boards and commissions. I see we've got our petition here. Okay,
When are we gonna do the RAD board?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Water Resource Advisory Board applicants will be considered at tomorrow's work session in the afternoon. I want to-
Yeah, in the
Yeah, in
afternoon.
the afternoon.
I'm sorry, today in the afternoon.
Well, today in the
Yes,
afternoon, sorry.
okay.
Yep, I know I saw it on one of this week's agendas. All right, next up is treatment sales tax follow-up. This was on for tomorrow, but I'd asked for it to be picked up to today since it connected to several different things we're talking about budget related. So made sense to me to have the follow-up just upfront. And so that's where we're at. And so public health is here.
Yep, as they get started, I just want to give special thanks to Dr. Freiheit and her team. There's and Shaylin, there's quite a bit that we're all working on right now. And so to turn this around and then to move it up a day early for the board, get all the information rounded up. I really appreciate that hard work so that the board has informed decision-making. So without further ado, hit it.
Thank you. Jen Fryhigh, Public Health and Social Services Director. Yes, and we're in luck because the Treatment Sales Tax Advisory Committee led by Shaylin and Joel have done tremendous amount of work ahead of time, and they were able to meet on Friday and come to some recommendations bringing forth here today. So I will turn it over to Shaylin to do the speech.
Thanks. Shaylin Sowers, Behavioral Health Fund Program Manager with Public Health and Social Services. And so as you know, this is a follow-up from last week's September 16th presentation on the TST budget. As you know, treatment sales tax, 0.1% sales tax for mental health, substance use, and therapeutic court services. We received clarification that this sales tax is collected within the entire jurisdictional area of the county, including the cities. The next 4 slides provide an overview of positions within the county offices and departments that are allocated to TST, including their full-time equivalents.
And I'll just slowly scroll through as opposed to going to each one. This is in response to Commissioner Mejia's question.
Thank you so much for getting this information. It's very helpful.
Okay, so what we're seeing here are all the FTEs that are supported by the tax revenue
Allocated to treatment sales tax,
by
yes.
each office and department.
And in total, 38.72 FTEs are allocated to TST.
38.72.
So the roundup for each department on the left-hand side and the breakout on the right-hand side.
And as a quick recap from the September 16th presentation, revenue growth has been flat since 2023 and is projected to remain flat through 2027. I brought forward a suggestion to you to decrease expenditures by $2 million in 2026 and 2027, which would bring expenditures to $9.3 million in 2026 and $9.4 million in 2027. PHSS staff brought your direction about the $2 million reduction in spending to the advisory committee on September 19th. And the committee's recommendations are on.
Wait, let's go there. Let's go to that slide real quick. Stay on there for just a minute. Yep. And there you can see on the expenditures and the projected, where Shaylin from the 11.14 to the projected 9.3. That's where the direction from the board is to try and make up that difference that was provided to the TST advisory committee. This is a reminder from last time.
Josh. And so the advisory committee's recommendations are on the next slide. So firstly, to decrease the Thurston Mason BHASO program spending by 10 to 11%. This would be in savings $406,000 in 2026 and in 2027, $374,000. The next recommendation is to reduce community grants by 75%. So from $300,000 to $75,000 annually. And then to shift $1.3 million in mental health related spending from treatment sales tax to public health and social services millage revenue, which includes $300,000 for community grants annually.
So then community grants would actually go up. It's available resources through this approach.
Yes. The $75,000 in TST and then $300,000 in public health and social services millage. Yes.
Thank you. You know, and me and Commissioner Grant are wearing 2 hats and, you know, with this, because we both serve on the BHASO side. So with that reduction in the BHASO, I mean, have we, I guess what, you know, I've heard from Joe is that they would like some flexibility and where they can make those potential reductions. And so they're opening to working with us. Just because some programs may be better positioned to absorb reductions. And I see Jason is here as well. And Chair, is it okay if we hear?
Can we just do a quick wrap up on this and maybe call him back up?
Okay, that's
So I
fine
think
with
one
me.
of the
Yeah.
things that we wanted to make sure the TST advisory recommendations that the board heard them first
Okay,
and then go through these other items. I think that the third one, the shift on the 1.3 mental health related services, That's a really big one. Really appreciate the team finding a way to look at other revenue to maintain those positions outside of the TST and in the millage revenue. So getting through these four and then maybe going to the BHSO, BHASO might be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and to just reiterate what the assistant county manager said, appreciate Dr. Freiheit giving Joe a heads up that this was gonna be discussed, but our preference was to talk here with the board, see what the board's direction was, and then Joe's a great partner and great collaborator to connect with that.
So the recommendations that are proposed retain all 38.72 FTEs that are county based.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to underline that.
That's the bottom line.
That's a huge
It's huge.
accomplishment. So thank you so much.
And we appreciate Public Works going into both the
Public
programmatic.
health.
Oh, public health. Can't have access to public health revenue, sorry. Appreciate Public Health for going into their budget and programs and looking for creative ways. And then quickly meeting with the advisory committee. I didn't know that we were gonna be able to accomplish that, so well done.
Thanks. It was a team effort.
And then,
Through the list.
sorry, go ahead. Go for it. No, sorry, go back forward. And then the last one is there for the board to consider in terms of the opioid settlement funding for the naloxone.
Yes.
Is another shift. Anyone go to the details on the next slide?
So this table provides a bit more information on the recommended reductions, and in the green, or highlighted in green, is for public health and social services millage revenue. And then in yellow is what's recommended for or being considered for opioid settlement.
So all those green are the hard work and creative thinking of the public health team to save those positions and that work that's being done in the community. So maybe let's go back up to the roundup and re-engage Commissioner Mejia's.
So we're going back now to the first item, right?
Yeah.
And talking about how to make that
BHASO.
the best, the structure, and you're proposing to have
Jason.
Jason coming forward.
Just to kind of hear what the impact is going to be on those programs as well.
And recall, this is the TST Advisory Committee's recommendations.
I understand that.
Good morning, Jason.
Thanks for calling me up. So it's tough to say exactly what the impacts would be. Most of these programs have blended funding going into them to support the work that's happening. There would definitely be significant impacts. It could be somewhat mitigated depending on the program that was specifically cut. But these are definitely going to impact behavioral health services in the community.
Would Joe and you be open to meeting with Dr. Freiheit to collaborating on what that would look like?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
So Commissioner Mejia said something about like flexibility in order to, to best apply. What is that? Can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
So depending on the program, like I mentioned, some of them are leveraging Medicaid also or other state funds for the BHSO that support the overall program cost. So there could be some flexibility within those programs. There's programs like housing case management, where something like rental assistance could potentially be cut to save FTEs that are providing support in the community. But even in that case, there's going to be an impact because that would reduce housing supports for people in our community. But either way, there could be potentially some flexibility to minimize impact. But these are all programs that have been in our community for a long time now, have pretty solid track records in terms of how many people they serve and the gaps they fill.
And maybe this question for you guys, but like mechanically, what does that mean? What they're asking for, that flexibility, like what would that mean for us? Would we have to do something specific to allow them to kind of evaluate where to apply the funding reduction or be connected to specific programs?
I think that comes to where we will just work together and sort of figure out how mechanically that would work.
The
Once they have
partnership that the county manager suggested.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that we would not want to see that. But any questions for Jason from the board while he's here? Yeah, he's your point.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of finding the way to be flexible and work with them to make sure that the funding is correct. And then I just, these are hard decisions that we're having to make, but we simply can't keep spending money that we're not bringing in, that we don't have. So, it's hard to make these decisions. It takes a lot of courage, but it's something that we need to do to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible.
Anything else? on this item?
No, I'm happy to take any other questions.
Yeah.
So if we were to, with that decrease, I guess, this was a recommendation from the TST advisory board, but the board has the flexibility to kind of shift things, and I'm wondering, with the millage revenues, right? Like, is that the maximum we could do?
Yes, well, go ahead and answer.
Yeah, we squeezed what we could out of it, and so there's even a few pieces that may only last under the millage revenue for 5 or 6 years, so we'll evaluate that annually, depending upon sales revenue. But yeah, we have now tapped that out.
Because even in that, right, like, Mason County their millage revenue towards the BHASO is around 300 to 400,000, and we're at less than that, way less than that. And so I'm trying to see, right, because BHASO is providing important programs to the community.
I think Shailen, we have time because we take the recommendation and ultimately it rolls up into a board item. That'll become before the board at a later date.
We're during the budget discussions, yeah.
Okay. So what we can do, commissioners, is give the BHASO time to work and to sit down and with that flexibility and creativity to then inform a final, here's what it looks like.
Yeah, I would appreciate to see what would be impacted by the BHASO.
Sure.
So.
I think we wanted to bring this to you as soon as possible so you can provide comment. And I think we're getting good comment here about that flexibility needing to be paramount. And then to work with Joe Avalos' team on impacts and then report that back out.
So just to remind everyone, the way this came up originally was, or one of the ways it came up was really wanting to see the shortfall in TST, what specific things were supported, where these impacts would hit. Because the opioid abatement council or the opioid settlement funds, it was discussed that there might be, before we do something with the opioid money, we should probably know, what's going on here. Now, it looks like this set of recommendations would cover that and not require any opioid settlement funds to backfill.
Consider shifting naloxone kits to opioid settlement
Yeah,
funding.
okay, that one. Okay, so 45,000.
Yeah.
45,000. But
and I think sorry, I don't want to.
yeah, well, just to finish the thought, so that's gonna inform, we've got all these things going that are all kind of interrelated. They're almost like dominoes, So I just want to make sure everybody's thinking about how these things connect. And, if it turns out that there's not a way to do something significant to help mitigate what's going on with the BHASO, then maybe we're back to saying, well, is there a way to save this or that through opioid dollars? We're trying to avoid that because we have other needs, but that's just the connection that the commissioners were kind of tussling with and why these are all being presented in this sequence. So
yeah, if the commissioners are willing to have two conversations at the same time, we can talk about the opioid abatement council and a recommendation staff has, for an approach. And why that I think is important is because the settlement that we're trying to address, we have a ballpark number, but we don't have a firm number. And I think the number we have is a very built out solution, whereas it could come in less than that. And what I'll do here is if someone the staff came up with a idea to take for the next 2 years, and we can evaluate 2 years from now before we're going into the next biennium. But staff's creative solution is to use about $1 million for each year, so it'd be 2 million total, for our county needs. And then to use about 500,000 for the pooled approach, so that the board can still work with the cities and we can implement the ILA for pooled resources. We would have to probably clarify some things about how the funding would work, but and we could accomplish that for 2 years. The reason I'm pointing that out, and Katie's probably thinking, why'd you call me at the table if you're gonna take everything I want to say? Don't worry, you're here for the answer to the hard questions, Katie. But the reason I'm saying that is there might be anywhere from 200 plus left over on that million for county needs that the board could say, well, in the flexibility conversations, how do we minimize the impact? At least, because we know the price tag was 800,000, at least 200, it may be more when it all shakes out and we finally come to a solution. So
So that's kind of along the lines of the hybrid idea that Commissioner Klaus and I think we were talking about
yes, Chair.
putting together to kind of hit both sides of it.
To give a lot of credit to Katie and Dr. Freiheit, they were coming up with a similar idea.
Can
on
you
the
list
side.
out the numbers again, please?
Sure. So the numbers for the,
Yeah.
it would be 1.5 a year is what we would recommend. 1 million for county purposes and 500 for the pooled service approach.
And the pooled service approach, looking at Katie, but like we are the public health department. We ran the opioid task force. We created the countywide opioid response plan. Cities, we just met with the cities where they were really like, you're gonna help us, I mean, we're the leaders in this area with Katie's leadership. So I mean,
You want to report out on what the mayor's had to say, Chair?
sure. Yeah, just to finish my point though, that putting money toward the pooled approach is still gonna advance county priorities is what I'm saying. I mean, we
Absolutely.
were kind of the leaders in putting together the priorities. So it's really just, it's still advancing high county priorities. So that's why I think it makes sense. We had a meeting with the 3 cities meeting, which happens every month or so. Between mayors and city managers and county manager and myself, we discussed this. This was put on the agenda by the cities, and they wanted to know kind of where we stood, and county manager reported out, and we got really good feedback. I mean, I guess there was a communication gap at some point where they didn't know what the county was doing or thinking. So they wanted to hear that, but they were very understanding of this idea of using some of it. But the county's in a tight spot, and we might be needing to use some of the funding for county specific purposes. I mean, even though most of our priorities are shared, when it comes to the issue with the jail and methadone, I mean, we were like, that's gonna be on our plate more than the city's plate. So anyway, so it was really good feedback. I wasn't sure what kind of reaction we get, but all the cities seemed to be very understanding of where we were at and supportive of our approach, and very happy to hear that we would continue to provide through Katie and public health support for their full decision making. It sounds like, if we go with this idea, we're gonna be part of it, just like everybody else. So that could be a win-win.
Go ahead.
Any thoughts on other commissioners? Commissioner Klaus?
Well, I have a question about kind of going back to the TST thing. and I may have missed this because I was walking down from my office, and so there was like a minute where I missed it. So sorry if you already said this, but I'm looking at the recommendations, and in the beginning of the presentation, we have kind of a list of positions, county positions that are funded through TST. When the TST Advisory Committee looked at this to make their recommendations, did they look at the county staff, or were they told not to look at those? Like, did they make the decision to not touch FTEs at the county? Or were they given the option of only looking at these other things that are funded by TST?
They looked at everything.
Okay, so they chose to they chose to save the county staff and just cut these things before us in the presentation?
They wanted to prioritize looking at contracted services first.
Okay. Thank you. Do you happen to have, and I don't want to make you have to go back and keep doing more and more, but maybe the budget team or somebody could give me information on how much the funded positions at the county cost?
Yeah, we can give you give you the information about the salary and benefits cost for the positions.
Okay, that would be great. I really appreciate like the recommendations that came forward, but I was looking at the presentation last night and kind of just wondering like how, if we cut the BHASO, would that impact these positions? Because a lot of these positions coordinate those outside contracts. So that's kind of, I was looking at like the TST coordinator in the jail, it looks like, the corrections lieutenant. And I was kind of wondering what that role does, and if they are coordinating services that come from BHSO or other contracted services that are gonna be cut, will that position have anything to do? So that's kind of some of the questions that I was thinking through as I was looking through the presentation last night. And I guess when we get more info from BHSO on the impacts, we might answer some of those questions, but I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on that. Does anyone know in the room what that TST coordinator is responsible for?
Yeah, so they oversee all the TST funded programs that are located within the jail. So they work with the chemical dependency program, and then as well as the preparing for reentry employment program, which is provided through Northwest Resources, and then also inmate mental health services, which is a contract with healthcare delivery systems for psychiatric medications. And then that position also coordinates with the ASO for, I believe, the jail behavioral health program, possibly some other connections as well.
Yeah, and the reentry program as well.
Okay, is Northwest Resources one of the programs that would be impacted by the recommended cuts?
Yes, potentially. Northwest Resources, Olympic Health and Recovery Services, ESD 113 True North, CYS, CCS. There are several providers in the community that would be impacted. I think one important context also is that of those contracts where we work with community partners, those are completely spent down. So there isn't any flexibility in terms of budget versus actual. I don't know how much that's been looked at, but.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. So are we making decisions? Are we moving forward with recommendations today, or are we waiting for the additional info and conversations with BHASO on the impacts?
So we're not making decisions on the TST. What you have before you is the recommendation as staff are presenting it from the advisory committee.
Okay.
But what we would like the board to consider is the opioid abatement fund conversation. And the proposal that would adjust the motion as written is the 1.5 for fiscal year 26, 1.5 for fiscal year 27, with $1 million of it being used for county eligible county services, and then 500,000 participating in the pool approach with our jurisdictions.
I know Commissioner Mejia and then Commissioner Fournier, quick follow-up though on that question. Just because it's $400,000 and you're like ticking through a whole ton of programs, I'm just wondering like, how does that, like, it doesn't seem like that much money to affect all the things that you just listed out.
Well, so it's part of it's the leveraging of funding to make programs whole, and some of it is extremely efficient programs. And we have programs that are maybe less than $200,000 that are running, serving 317 people a year. So some of it's about efficiency and streamlined as much as possible already. So that's kind of how, and then again, it depends on how that is rolled out. If that is the cut to the program, how much flexibility would there be, and then which programs would it impact? But it potentially could completely wipe out some programs.
Not all of them. You're just saying those are the ones that could possibly be on the block
Yes.
for a cut.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Commissioner Mejia, you're next.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, the BHASO does a great job in leveraging other funds to kind of run these programs and you know, TST helps support some of these programs. And, you know, I kind of just want to remind the board that, you know, when the COVID pandemic happened, you know, their FT, that was the jail mental health program, you know, was funded through TST, but they gave that money back to TST because we were going through cuts during that time as well. And now the BHASO is funding that through Medicaid funds. So, you know, their BHASO is always great partners and trying to find other alternatives. So I just, it's concerning, you know, when we're decreasing these, you know, TST funds available for them, especially if, you know, they're the ones who are carrying out a lot of the services that our community needs. That aside, I wanted to go to the opioid abatement piece. And so with the hybrid, I'm okay with moving forward with the $1 million for the county for the possible expenditure that we have, and then 0.5 for the pooled approach. I'm not sure, and I don't need it to make a decision, but I kind of want to see like, you know, based on like what we have now and kind of spread out like what that would look like. And I know we have more coming in.
Like in terms of the settlement fund?
Yes, but I don't need that to make a decision. I just would like to see it just, you know, whenever there's time available, just to kind of see what that would look like and the outcome in the years.
And Commissioner, it would be our desire to, once we figure out the situation around the settlement, anything over the needs for that item, to look to shift funding to help support the BHASO reduction. Initially, that's very clearly about 200,000, but it could be more if we work with the actual understanding of what needs to be implemented.
Okay, you're saying we might need to use 800,000 of the million for Medicaid and for methadone, and we may have 200,000 to backfill this.
Yep.
Okay, I have Commissioner Fournier and then Commissioner Grant. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you. So regarding the opioid, the approach to the OAC, I think everybody did a good job kind of, you know, circling back up and then trying to and finding a hybrid approach. I think in light of the TST conversation, that's probably a good move. And I like what I'm hearing. I you know, and I hate to keep saying it, but I do feel like we need to be very careful in anything we obligate ourselves to. I was talking to a business owner yesterday that kind of he deals in kind of base he sells rock and gravel, and he was saying that his sales are down 37% from the same time last year. So like just you know, these are the most basic goods that everything is built on, and sales are just in the gutter. So, you know, being careful in what we obligate ourselves to and making sure that we have the money available to meet our obligations, I think should be the most important thing that we're considering. So thank you.
Commissioner Grant.
Yeah, and I think I'm echoing, I guess I was thinking about the same thing as one thing. I guess I have a question for Shaylin and others. You know, we're basing the exercise of cuts on the projection of lower sales tax. And you know, like as Commissioner Fournier says, yes, that is probably what's going to happen. But has there been a discussion with TST around what if sales tax doesn't drop and we still have the an extra $1 million? how are we gonna prioritize putting that back into the mix? Has that discussion happened at all?
No, Commissioner, we've not had a discussion about an extra $1 million. Part of the reason is there's no modeling that shows that type of revenue coming in. However, if sales tax performs better, the board will be the first to know about it. As I believe our budget team will come running down the stairs to the board chambers. It'll have sweeping effects across all of our sales tax related funds. And if it starts to perform better and revenue looks like it's coming in stronger, I'm sure Shaylin could bring the advisory committee together. And with the approach that we're taking, it looks like we have some very clear areas where we would add back, most notably to BHASO.
We have.
So my question though was to Shaylin and was the question of, has the TST committee talked about that as what they would prioritize? I guess I'm asking because at one point I was on the TST committee and I think we probably would have had that conversation. And so have we thought about what would happen if we do come in higher? That's the question I have for Shaylin.
We would have to do some more research on that. We haven't had those conversations yet.
Okay, I just didn't know. I didn't know if you guys would have had that and had been kind of having a plan. So I appreciate you answering. Thank you.
And I apologize, Commissioner Graham, but you didn't see Shaylin kind of start shaking her head, so, yeah.
And there's precedent for that because a couple of years ago when sales tax was 15% growth, we had a fund balance and we had to come forward and kind of talk about how to allocate some additional funding.
Yeah. And as my time as a TSC chair, there was also a year where we had funding that went unspent in certain areas because of vacant positions. And we were, so I just am making sure that we're thinking about, all of those different things in this discussion.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. I don't see any other hands. Okay, we've talking about TST, we're talking about opioid abatement. There is a proposed action regarding opioid settlement, and that's the proposal for the hybrid structure that you.
Would need to be changed from as written to include the 1.5 fiscal year 26 and 1.5 fiscal year 27.
Just in addition to the language, Commissioner Klaus.
Can we hear from Katie on the proposal? I'm just kind of curious about the background and context.
Sure, Katie.
So we were looking at how to prioritize county needs as well as address community needs and really leverage the money in addition to the funding from the 3 cities that are coming. We have a bulk of the funding. We also, when we look at opioid settlement, the settlements are based on different payment structures and payout timelines. So we have multiple settlements, some over 7, 13, 17, 15 years, and some that paid out in 2 chunks up front or 1 chunk up front as well. So when we look at our payment structure, our payments are heavily front loaded. So we're on about year 4 or 5 of receiving opioid settlement funds right now. So we do have a nice pool of money that we're waiting to get out in the community. And as we look at opioid and overdose response, we really recognize that there are a ton of immediate community needs, while also wanting to balance being able to stretch the money over multiple years. So that 1.5 allows us to look at the county needs first with the 1 million, recognizing that the jail MOUD cost is going to be heavy, but also looking at how we can collaborate and hopefully get that cost as low as possible. We connected the state with the State Opioid Treatment Authority, Healthcare Authority. They provide technical assistance to all of the jails because they're going to oversee the opioid treatment programs in the state. And it's really their expertise as to how to operate this as low cost and as ADA and DOJ compliant in jails as possible. So then being able to hopefully reduce that cost as much as possible to be able to offset cuts like to the ASO, because we know that as we put MOUD in jail, we also don't want to lose those crucial reentry programs or in-jail programs as well, because they really braid for whole person care. And then that 500,000 allows us to bring a considerable chunk of money on a yearly basis to pool with the cities where they can leverage their much smaller dollar amounts so that we can address really the community need of the opioid response plan, help the cities through leveraging our technical assistance and expertise at public health to be able to have that whole Thurston County approach.
So makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is really, really cool. I just want to say thanks for that, putting the work into coming up with that idea where we kind of all felt stuck, I think, for a while. That moves forward and I think checks all the boxes that we were hoping to cover. So thank you for that. My question for staff is looking at the proposed motion and how it's been amended. I'm just wondering if we could possibly look at this again in 1 year. So instead of 1.5 for 2 years, maybe since everything is shifting so rapidly, we could give ourselves the opportunity to like look at this again in 2026 to make a decision on 2027 versus making a 2-year plan right now.
I mean,
If we sign an ILA, doesn't it have to be prescriptive? That's just a question.
We need the revenue, we can always relook at things, but we need to build a 2-year budget. And so that's what we're looking to have numbers to plug in.
there's always a budget amendment process, and if we could revisit if we think things have shifted in a way that we could make better use, I think.
And I agree with Commissioner Klaus that there is wisdom to say, let's really, I mean, our approach will be in 26 to be coming and looking at the budget with you all quarterly to see how revenues are adjusting. We're hoping to start adjusting up, which could then start changing the rest of 26 and into 27 in our amendment process.
Okay, so the amendment process is the mechanism for looking at it again. Is there any way we could add an additional safeguard by including just being intentional about looking at this again in 1 year versus relying on the amendment process?
The OAC, we will be looking at it annually anyway because of the response plan. And so, and we plan to bring all of those communications back, you know, from the OAC to this group as well, just to relook at what's happening in the community and how those monies are being spent, so.
Okay,
It's possible that it could be, the federal government could change its directive on how we administer those medications in the jail and would give us more flexibility. I don't know. I mean, that wouldn't shock me.
That'd be outstanding.
Yeah.
Is that,
Okay, so there's a proposed motion. Is anyone ready to make that motion?
What is the amended one?
I'll make it.
Okay, yeah.
I move to approve use of opioid abatement funds for Department of Justice Settlement and other eligible county services in the amount of $1 million with an additional $500,000 to be used for in a pooled manner with the cities through an ILA
I'll second.
for the next biennium. That's a motion and second discussion. Call for the vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
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 Right, that passes unanimously. Okay, so for our TST and opioid pieces, county manager,
County Manager, are we good with Katie? Or for Katie?
I'm sorry.
Or for Katie, or are we good?
I just want to, more for Katie is thank you for hearing what the board said, understanding the dynamics with our partners. What the chair and I and the vice chair heard from our partners is the pulling of the funds was important, but was way more important to them is working with the county through public health.
getting the money out like
Yeah.
quickly was.
And they thought that us not pulling the funds meant that you were gonna walk away. So when we said that was never part of the conversation, they went, we understand you have to take care of your needs. So this is a great, as you said, this is a great solution that I want to give all the kudos to you and Dr. Fryhead for coming up with and bringing it forward.
and Shaylin, I know kind of crosswalking the two sources of funding required your efforts too, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, and this is all like, I mean, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Mejia because you were the one that made the request, but this looks like totally on point for my purposes. Like
It was.
very easy to understand and so we
Yeah.
really appreciate this.
Yeah, the team is hustling behind the scenes. We're coordinating with the directors, this county manager, budget and finance manager. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to do this type of work and we appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this for me, the breakdown was what I really needed to see and, you know, to know how many positions are being funded through this is really helpful. Which positions exactly are being funded through this is very helpful. So yeah, it's exactly what I was kind of envisioning. So thank you for all of your hard work. Katie, same to you. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. Really appreciate public health and social services coming in with the information and really thinking very holistically about, you know, which programs are impacting. So
And then as it relates to TST and the BHA, so I think that there's more to come for the team to engage on.
yeah, that would be great.
So I'm not sure, is there more that we need to discuss at the table this time on this topic?
No. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Being here, Jason.
All right, let's keep plowing. We have a lot to cover. Yeah.
Chair, can I ask for a break? 5 minutes, please.
Okay, it's 10:13. We'll be reconvened at 10:20. Take a quick recess.
Can I talk with you, please?
Yep. Yeah, okay, it's 10:27. We are back from a recess. We're picking up with item 4 on the agenda, which is the board's consideration of a series of target reduction options. These are a set of potential decisions the board can make that would unlock additional revenue that would help us mitigate our general fund shortfall. Just for the record, Commissioner Grant is facing some extenuating circumstances. So we hope to have her back as she can. We do need to advance these conversations. There may be certain things that we don't make a decision on today or whatever. I mean, there's no nothing set in stone there, but with the time that we have and there's a set of interrelated dominoes here that kind of need to be addressed by the board to the extent possible. So we're gonna have to move forward with discussion and see how far we can go. The first item under this section is HB 2015. I'm gonna look to the county manager to give us an update.
Yep, thanks so much.
Okay, perfect.
Want to thank the commissioners for considering these items. These are items that either the board has discussed, individual commissioners discussed, other elected officials have brought forward, and all of these would have a potential impact to reducing the deficit. First one, House Bill 2015 is a public safety sales tax. Summer, do you mind just giving a quick overview on what that would do for the county? And
Sorry, can we just clarify? So basically what we're doing today, the motions, it's not basically what the funding is going to be used for, and it's more of like, are we moving forward with some revenue proposals? So,
yeah, that's great, Commissioner. So the strategy is we have issued departments targets. The board has heard from departments and offices what those targets are going to do, how those targets are going to impact them. During the course of conversations over the last several weeks, there have been ideas. HB 2015 is something the board directed staff to research and come back as a potential revenue option. The decisions today are to direct the county manager, county staff to begin the implementation, but we are not at the point of discussion on what those funds will be used for. After we go through these discussions, the next part of the budget conversation is to look at a roll-up of everything you heard that was requested by commissioners to have a one document kind of approach. And then we can look at where we are still not hitting the targets and there's still a potential deficit. The idea behind that being, once you know how much you are able to bring in new revenue or reduce expenditures in certain areas, that gives you some latitude to then apply potentially to how you go through the different roll-up. On the roll-up part of the conversation, we're not expecting decisions. We're wanting to make sure that we can hear from you. If there's questions about details that you haven't had answered, then we can take those away answer them, bring it back tomorrow, and have a conversation about finalizing the departments and offices 26-27 general fund targets.
So the way I've thought of it is when we talk about looking under every rock, these are a list of rocks. And we need to sort of, we're gonna turn that rock over, put it back. We don't want to go there, or we do. And then the budget pieces of that will actually be tomorrow and potentially after that. But today is to try to figure out if we want to continue pursuing the things underneath the various rocks that we've been looking for. And some of these came from auditor, treasurer. I'm trying to think. There's been 5 or 6 different places where these ideas have come from that we're trying to consolidate, just so we're making sure that our directors and elected officials know that we're considering every possible source of reduction.
We will continue as things pop up. If something is flagged, we will bring that forward and have the conversation about how does that reduce. That's our commitment, is looking at how do we lessen the impacts to our critical services.
Does that cover your question, Commissioner Mejia?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Summer, you're up on deck for HB 2015.
Okay, thank you. Just as a reminder, HB 2015 became available, I believe it was in late July of this year, as an increase to sales tax that can be councilmanically imposed by the board through majority vote, and then a presentation of resolution. We've met most of the requirements. The remaining requirements are to culminate the grant application documents and submit that to CJTC. We don't have to actually apply for the grant. We just have to meet the requirements of the grant in order to impose the tax. It is 0.1%. I did learn from WASAC and got confirmation that the tax is stackable and there is no revenue sharing as are currently experiencing with our 0.2% in public safety sales tax collection. So
If I could just fill in the gaps. Summer and I have been talking about this quite a bit, and yesterday we were going through making sure that with the news of the city of Olympia potentially implementing this tax, would there be any impacts to the number that was projected, which was 7.5 million? And in the information we had at hand yesterday, it looked like it could be. So Summer has, since the time we last talked till just, I think, leading up, she's been sending emails out, trying to verify the language that has some, it's specific in some areas, but on the revenue share, it was a little bit vague. And so that's where she rounded up some information about the understanding that it's stackable. We still, depending on board's direction, would want to finish completely reviewing that with the State Department of Revenue. But she had been reached out to the sources that she has mentioned. Sorry, Summer, back to you.
no, that's absolutely correct. Thank you for.
Oh, that's an update on the last communication that I had from you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So as the county manager said, I do have communication out to Department of Revenue as well, just to check the projections. So if that changes, we will be happy to bring that back to the board.
And then the uses for this revenue?
It can be used for a variety of items, for public safety improvement. Let's see, let me just make sure I'm giving you the correct information. So the broad use, domestic violence services, public defenders, diversion programs, reentry work for inmates, reducing homelessness or improving behavioral health, community placements for juvenile officers, community outreach, alternative response, mental health, crisis response. I did receive communication from WASAC some weeks back that it's broad intentionally and supplanting is allowed. So this would be a good revenue source to backfill some of the general fund areas.
Okay, any discussion from commissioners on whether we want to move forward with this? Commissioner Klaus,
I would like
you're
to.
nodding?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm happy to make a motion.
okay, go ahead.
I would move to direct staff to implement House Bill 2015.
Second.
Motion and second to implement House Bill 2015. Commissioner Grant, so you come off mute.
Oh, I was just gonna say aye.
Okay. Anybody have any concern or discussion point? All right, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Commissioner Fournier's got a thumbs up, so it's got a unanimous vote to move forward on this. All right, well, we've got a lot to cover, so I'm just gonna, I mean, there's a lot to say, we could say about this, and we'll have time to do that in the future, but let's go right to the next bullet. Collective bargaining agreements.
Yeah, I'll let Summer go ahead and talk about this. It's a little bit nuanced, but it still is opportunity for a bit of a savings. Go ahead, Summer.
Thank you. So as the board has heard many times from me, collective bargaining for the sheriff's office corrections has been captured in Amendment 2, so that's part of the budget process. The patrol contract is ratified, but yet to be added to Amendment 3. In the process of the bargaining, I was in pretty close communications with Cameron, and we shared projections on what the cost impacts would be in 26 and 27. After he and I had recent communication and looked at CPI figures and looked at the contract again, I realigned the projections in 26. So we're actually based off of the language in the articles and the CPI figures that came in, we adjusted down approximately $2 million. So that's added back into your general fund budget projections as a positive.
Not much to debate there, right? The number's the number.
What's the number?
2 million.
Okay.
That's good news.
It
We
is.
haven't talked, I hadn't heard all the details on that, so there's really nothing to decide there. We're gonna agree to place that, whatever that number is, back into the model.
Yeah, we just have a proposed motion there so that it's clear to all commissioners that direction was formalized.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Mejia.
Move to utilize cost savings from collective bargaining agreements to balance the general fund for the 2026-2027 biennial budget development.
I'll second it. Motion and second to utilize cost savings from collective bargaining agreements toward general fund budget development. Any discussion on that? All for the vote, all in favor, wait, Commissioner Klaus.
I just have a question. I know this sounds like it's a pretty obvious choice, but I know it is nuanced. I want to ask Commissioner Grant, because I know you aren't able to be here, and I don't know if you're able to respond, but some of these motions, I know you've worked really hard to look at the budget. I had a meeting with Commissioner Grant yesterday, and we kind of looked at some of the information that she has, which is extremely helpful to me. I just want to make sure you're comfortable with some of these motions, because you can't be here, and I know you have probably some stuff to add if you were here.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm okay with discussing some of these things. I am okay with this motion. I do appreciate that, though. I am sitting in a large hospital right now, and so this is tough for me this morning, but I appreciate it, Emily. I think we can move forward and just I'll try to do my best this morning.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you for being on here, and I just want to say to the board that if Commissioner Grant's not comfortable with any of these motions because of her inability to be here due to extenuating circumstances, I would appreciate holding off on some of the ones that she might have concerns about, so that we could hear her concerns when she has the capacity to explain them. But that's all I have on this one.
Okay. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Right, that passes unanimously. Let's go to interest earned.
Thank you, Chair. This is an item that we appreciate our treasurer, Jeff Gadman, bringing forward. And the budget team has taken a look and done the research on this, and I'll hand over to Summer to kind of talk about the impact.
Sure, thank you. So Treasurer Gadman sent over a document of interest that can be swept from the general fund. It it was essentially separated into two buckets, if you will, one that was unrestricted and another set that was restricted by prior board action through resolution. So we took the 3.079 million in the unrestricted interest earned. And we're proposing that the board approve sweeping that into general fund revenues. And if it's approved, then I'll create a resolution and bring that forward.
Can you repeat the number?
3.079 million. 3,079,000.
Okay, any questions for Summer on what we're doing here? Okay, is there a motion?
Move to allocate non-restricted interest earned to the general fund for the 2026 through 2027 biennial budget development.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. So for discussion, we have interest sweeps from non-restricted interest toward budget development for general fund. Discussion on that motion?
I'll just say that this was something that, has been done in the past. It's not anything new. And, thank you to the auditor and the treasurer for flagging this for the board and for budget staff to look at.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Klaus?
I just have a question. So on these ones where we are, they're kind of cleanup steps and they are helping the general fund, is that gonna offset the cuts that we have received proposals on from the departments? So all of these totals will kind of alleviate some of the pressure on the departments.
That's the idea.
Okay, perfect.
And the specifics of that will be tomorrow.
Okay,
So we weren't gonna go into how they'll help and who they'll help, but they will help.
okay,
That's how we.
perfect.
um,
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this one? All for the vote, all in favor, say aye.
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 And that's 5 votes in favor. Right, next up, ARPA.
Yep, next one is American Rescue Act, Plan Act, and we want to give special thanks to our auditor, Mary Hall, for bringing this forward in a discussion with the chair and Commissioner Mejia. And I'll pass over to Summer to kind of talk through the opportunity here.
Thank you. Yes, correct. So there was some conversation and a meeting with the Auditor Hall about ARPA funding. I had Karen, who's our new ARPA specialist, budget analyst, go through and do a comprehensive review of all of the yet to be spent obligated funds that are remaining there. And she was able to identify $1.37 million in unspent ARPA public sector workforce funding. And after some research with Treasury, we have determined that that can be swept into the general fund as revenues in.
Can you read that number again?
1.37 million. And after, if the board pleases and approves it, then we'll be happy to go ahead and create that operating transfer.
2 questions. I'm sorry, can you repeat for the interest earned, how much the revenue was?
Sure, it was 3,079,000.
And then ARPA is,
1,370,000, I believe, 6,000. So 1.37.
thank you.
And can we make sure this gets sent in an email too?
Yeah, we'll do.
Those numbers, okay.
Yeah, we'll do a summary at the end of the.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Because that will help us.
Any other questions about this item?
I just have a question. I thought that we had to spend, well, so this is just, I guess, maybe I'm answering my own question as I'm asking it. I thought that we had to spend all of the ARPA funds by the end of this year. Is that not the case?
No, the ARPA funding needs to be spent down by December 31st, 2026. Reporting needs to be completed by April 30th of 2027. the county needed to obligate all remaining unobligated funds by December 31st of 2024, and that would have been through MOU or interagency agreement or through reporting portal information saying that the funds had already been obligated. So all of our funds have been obligated, and we have another year and 4 months to spend that down.
Okay, and when we say that the funds are obligated, doesn't that mean that we have to have them committed to a certain item?
They are all committed to certain projects. The good treasury guidance allows if there is a projected underspend on a project that we can shift that money to other obligated projects.
Okay,
We can't add any new projects. We can
Yeah.
just move the money to a project that's already been obligated.
The way ARPA worked is if you didn't obligate by a certain point, it wouldn't be considered. So if you obligated a series of items and you had funding, you are allowed to move in between so that you can make sure the money is spent, because they realize in the rules that sometimes costs would come in higher or lower for certain projects.
When you said, this is follow-up to Commissioner Klaus, because I kind of had the same question, but it's like the different places they're coming from, they're going to, you said workforce.
Yeah, so essentially there were two buckets of money that was used for like a FTE swap and for bonuses. Items that are primarily employee driven.
Which we can find general fund uses for.
Yes,
In order to keep them within the parameters of the treasury guidance.
yes, and I will say after Karen did some legwork, which I really appreciate and vetted this all out, I did recall having a conversation with Diana shortly before our loss, you know, that this was something that we needed to consider where the funding would go. So lucky for us that we found somebody who has some pretty great grant experience and uncovered and created the backup documentation so we can feel confident in the transfer.
Does that kind of cover your question, Commissioner Klaus?
I think so. So is this just money that it was obligated but hasn't been spent and we expect an underspend, so that's why we have this additional money?
This was money that was obligated for this particular purpose. It just wasn't transferred over. So it was scheduled, from what I can tell in the records, to occur in 3 increments. And so we've already accomplished the first 2. So this was money essentially sitting there pending transfer.
Okay. And what projects are we able to dedicate this funding towards? Do we already have a list of projects that could benefit from this?
All of the projects that have already been obligated are projected and underspend, where to some degree.
I think the question is what you said, what can we obligate it for? Yeah, are we?
You cannot obligate it for anything new. You can.
Hold on. Is this 1.37 going to be able to be used to address the county's deficit?
Yes, it'll be a transfer into revenues, into general fund.
Okay. But we have so like, I'm trying to think of an example of a project that we spent ARPA funds on, and I can't, for some reason, bring one. I can't remember right now, but like, we already have projects that we were talking about using ARPA funds for. So are we limited to, like, do we have a specific project or projects that we would be considering for this funding? Or is it just going to general fund? We can't spend it on just anything.
No,
So-
you can only use it on the remaining in progress projects that have obligated amounts that were obligated prior to December 31st of 2024. So any of the
I'm
prior
confused.
projects that had obligations that were spent down and closed, we cannot add any additional monies.
Summer, for the purpose of this conversation, these dollars are going to be able to be used for general fund purposes once they're transferred.
Yes, we can transfer it in as revenues into the general fund.
But they're not stuck to certain things like a wastewater treatment upgrade or something?
No, in the prior years, I think it was 22 and 23, there were operating transfers into revenue for this specific purpose.
There were flexible things
The
within,
FTE swap
Yeah.
was one
like
of them.
FT swap is like, I mean, you'd have to, there were these flexible, as ARPA evolved and there was changing guidance, there was some flexibility in there that you can, it doesn't read this way, but it can functionally be that you basically use it for your general fund because you have all these FTEs embedded in your general fund and you can use it to backfill those positions under certain parameters. I mean, there's enough flexibility there that it can basically be seen as a,
Yeah.
right, as a
So
a general fund infusion.
what this is there was, we're not taking any money from a project or defunding a project, otherwise we would tell you that. This is extra funding that was gonna be, as Summer mentioned, before our former staff member passed away. They were already identifying, it's really a cleanup action. The auditor mentioning it, her knowledge of kind of the broad scope ARPA, that's a potential bucket. You may have a lot of money, you may have a little money in there, and if we haven't looked at it already, like move it over, which triggered us to say, you're right, let's go and take a look at that. And so it'll be 1.37 that then comes over, it'll be added to the total that then you have flexible dollars to use towards the deficit.
Okay.
I know it's pretty complicated, honestly. We had to walk through this whole, there was the, like, back when ARPA was first here and we were trying to understand it, there was a loss, like, there were two paths of lost revenue. You could like try to calculate your actual lost revenue or use a formula, you know, and you could, and every jurisdiction would sort of figure out, okay, which one will probably benefit us the most in terms of flexibility. And for us, it was the formula. So we just, we calculated through a formula. We were able to take that amount of ARPA money and just put it in the general fund in compensation for just what was a ballpark formulaic guesstimate of what our lost revenue was from all the different impacts to the community. So that then became general fund revenue. That was just one example. Then there was this thing about FTE swapping, which was again another slightly more restricted but pretty flexible way of getting money to help us pay for the FTEs that we have in the general fund. So there's ways to, you know, put it toward a project that's within the guidelines that it's very flexible from our perspective of general fund usage.
Okay.
So that's, I think, where this kind of, it gets really confusing, but it does make sense to me at a high level. And I don't know that I know all the details of it, but
Yeah. So when it comes time to decide what these funds will be spent on, will we receive like information from the staff, from the budget team about what we can use this money on, or is it just gonna go into the general fund like all the others?
Just general
just
fund.
goes in.
Okay.
I guess the question would be maybe to help illuminate, like, if we voted no, not doing this, like what happens to this?
We'll leave it where it's at and it's taken back because we don't spend it.
Oh, I see, it just goes back to the.
We don't want to give any ARPA money back if we can avoid it.
Right.
But to your question, to what Commissioner Mensah said in the beginning, we will go through these and whatever decisions you make, then we'll take a small recess, come back with the total. But the staff aren't telling you what you're gonna do with the money. That's funds. The board will talk about that and give us direction as to here's how we want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just gives us options to turn the dials, as Commissioner Mensah said last week, of like, okay, we have a little bit more revenue on this end, like, you know, we can reduce the cuts on this department or this area a little bit more. So
Okay.
it's just giving us overall revenue, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Motion?
I would move to approve the use of unspent American Rescue Plan Act FTE funding for the 2026 through 2027 biennial budget development.
Second.
Motion and second to approve use of unspent ARPA money for the budget development. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 We have 5 votes in favor of that. Thank you, commissioners. All right, next up, internal service rates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The reason this item is on there is because when we first did the reduction exercises, county was still working through its rates for 26, 27, and so we did not know exactly how much and what reductions internal service rates would undergo. You heard last week from our departments that make up the internal service rates, central services, IT, even HR has a portion of it, came forward with their conversation about what cuts they were able to make. And very thankful for the hard work that those department directors did because they looked at the part that was discretionary general fund and they made cuts. And I think one department was an overachiever and went above cut exercise. And so that, if the board approves that, and says, yes, we want to move forward with that, that will also have an impact to the overall number. And I'll hand over to Summer to kind of talk about the actual figures.
Sure, thank you. So the total amount that central services and IT was able to pull together, I believe was about 2.47 million. That may have increased slightly, but that was the amount that we reported out to the board in email. Based off the first review, it was 900,000 for IT and I think 1.57 million for central services.
Other way around.
Oh, other way around. Oh, it is the other way around. Thank you. So that would be a reduction in the rates and we could potentially build it into our general fund estimates for a fund balance at year end.
2.5 million is what you're saying?
Yep, 2.47, but yeah, 2.5.
Am I correct? Like, I think the assessor and maybe some other elected officials had said, you know, when they're asked to do cuts and, you know, they can't, like, there's this huge chunk of internal service rates that are untouchable. Like, does this somehow address that a little bit by trying, does that connect to that concern expressed that like they would be getting through this action a reduction in, how does that fit with?
Yeah, did you want to?
Go ahead, and then I'll.
As the departments, the internal service departments reduce their expenses, that will have a impact to all the offices and departments. There is, I think, a lot more work for us to do on the internal service rate component, how it's constructed. We've been having conversations about that even prior to realizing how significant this deficit is. But in addition to that, I think what's important to note is as departments get an increase in the internal service rate, that's the inflationary amount that the county covers year over year. I don't know in recent history if the county has increased its internal service rates and said to departments, you have to eat those costs without any additional general fund. So I think the office's comments are accurate in that in their budget, there's a portion that is internal service rates. But like you heard from IT, a lot of those items are passed through from the department, meaning they're not charges that they can control. Things like how many cell phones or different things that you're doing, or different fee for service software that they have and have asked for. The department facilitates it, but isn't necessarily the one driving the cost.
I don't have anything to add to that.
So we look to.
Like in previous cut exercises, we didn't take this step, right? To sort of.
No, not to this
Because
degree.
it wasn't they were much smaller exercises.
Well, I mean, the last one that was done, there were adjustments made to the ER&R fund. But that's a direct service impact to those offices and departments because the ER&R reserve fund is for equipment.
Yeah, this is a operational look that central services and IT did, and we believe it's important and warranted because we're helping to spread out the impacts to every aspect that, and I say central services indirectly touches the general fund, but there's still that nexus there.
The board, bottom line, if the board takes this action that's proposed, that's going to assist elected offices and departments.
Yep.
Okay, and I just wanted to make that clear what we're trying to do here. I don't remember having done this in the past, so. Any other questions on this item?
So I'm just looking at the presentation from the 17th that we got from Central Services that kind of lists the impacts of these reductions. And so I just want to clarify the motion and the impact. So would this motion approve the reduction, every reduction that was listed in the central services presentation.
Yes.
So this is the one where we kind of talked about like maintenance outside and having to take care of plants and stuff.
Get your watering pail. Fisher
Yeah.
Claus.
Okay, and it will, so I'm just gonna kind of read some of the impacts to make sure I'm clear that this will unfund 3 positions for fiscal staff and 50% of capital projects administrative staff. These are all part of this motion. Okay,
These weren't easy,
yeah, this said.
but our
a lot
departments
more.
came through and provided that information and shared the impacts, so
Yeah.
that's where we are.
I want to say I do think that this is a smart move, but I'm concerned about transparency for the public because this presentation on the 17th was not, it was a planning session, so it wasn't recorded or, it won't be available for the public to watch unless they were here. And there are a lot of impacts that this motion has. So I just feel like those impacts should be somewhere on the record. And I don't necessarily think I should sit here and read through. I mean, there's several slides with a lot of impacts. So I'm just kind of curious, how would the public know what these impacts are?
We can do a report out, Commissioner. We will go to discussions later today and even tomorrow about all the department's cuts. So we can work with our communications. Well, first of all, this meeting will be recorded, but we can give a roundup of all the impacts. I think that's important for the public to know what work we're doing internally, at reducing expenses.
Okay. Okay.
Are we
Yeah.
gonna go into more detail tomorrow?
Yes.
The impacts?
Yeah. And I think the roll-up sheet that you have has an overview of some of the impacts.
But these impacts don't necessarily show like, well, maybe they do.
Super small font.
I know I try to put it on big paper, it's still really small, but does this sheet clarify or identify which cuts are related to internal service rates?
I believe
In the last 2 lines.
central services and IPO.
They're the last 2 that are listed before the totals.
Okay, the last 2 rows, so central service, okay, I see that now. Is this document available publicly?
I believe so. It's part of the meeting.
It was part of the agenda setting packet.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't see this in the agenda setting packet, so maybe we can add that. Okay. I could be wrong, but I was looking at it last night at like 8:30 and I didn't see this document on there. This one I got from Amy.
We'll make sure we if it's not.
Okay. Because of the like magnitude of the impacts, could we adjust the motion to, I mean, rather than approving the reductions today, can we kind of do similar to what we've done in other motions where we approve moving forward with this conversation? And then tomorrow we have all the information publicly available and we can approve it at that point? Because I worry about approving the reductions now and then making the information public later. And I'd rather swap that so that the public has the information about what this is gonna do before we actually approve it.
Commissioner Mejia, you had your hand up. I don't know, it's probably not on this topic. And Commissioner Fournier, did you have a response to Commissioner Klaus? I mean, just to get this topic covered. Or Commissioner Mejia, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to just say that we move forward with the information technology because it is in terms of operations reductions, which is the support contracts for phone, website, JAVs, the retire some software operations and eliminate some funding for professional services. It was very straightforward to me, so. And then I think central services, I think the board will need, because it's position impact, maybe a little bit more discussion on that piece.
But information technology seemed very straightforward to me.
And if I could add that to Commissioner Klaus's comment, we are starting the budget process and all the decisions will be rolled up in the public hearing and will be made available several times to the public as part of the process. So what we're doing is,
These are preliminary decisions. The budget doesn't get approved till the end.
yeah, these decisions don't circumvent your overall approval of the budget. But what we're doing is we're getting decisions from you, partly because we want to document clearly what we're doing in this time frame so that there's no confusion. And you're telling us to move forward so that we can look at how do those numbers impact. During the budget process, you're going to have several opportunities as the board to make final adoptions and approvals, which all that information is communicated out to the public.
Commissioner Fournier?
Yeah, he basically said my comment. These are, am I on?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's hard. These are all moving targets. And, you know, we have to just keep updating the public as we make decisions. So it's like, it's hard to be completely sequential in like the rollout because we have to move forward on things. So I don't want to put off any more decisions in my opinion.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion, Commissioner Fournier? You're not prepared?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I want to go back to Commissioner Mejia. Your idea about moving forward on IT, not central services, is based on, can you explain that a little more?
Yes, because with central services, we're talking about positions, and I think it should be considered with kind of the rest of the budget module of.
Because that was part of the cut related to you're saying it would be getting ahead of the decision making on the cut proposed by.
That makes sense to me too.
Well, and I have a question. So when it comes to the central services, well, I guess, never mind. I just answered my own question in my head. I was thinking that almost all central services positions are covered not from the general fund. And so that's one of the things I wanted us to be thinking about. But this is different.
The motion be that we move to approve internal service rate reductions as decided by the board. You know what I mean? Like without that we're going to do it. It's just a matter of subject to the final decisions of the board on the specifics.
What I would recommend is you make the motion, take the number, add up all these numbers. Then if you want to give back to central services, then you're able to do that as part of your ultimate use of the.
Reapplying the
Right.
revenues.
Because what this does is it shrinks down the deficit, which gives you more space to apply to the different needs.
Okay, so no one's made a motion yet. I'm gonna make a motion to approve internal service rate reductions as presented on Wednesday, September 17, 2025 for the Department of Central Services and Information Technology.
Second.
There's a second, so that's the motion prepared, kind of in line with what the county manager just said. Discussion on that.
Thank you. I guess my discussion would be I would like to, once we're talking about the cuts, and I would like central services to be considered as well, because when we're talking about positions, I just want us to look at whatever alternatives we can have.
And on behalf of central services, we would express a sincere thanks for that.
Other discussion on this motion?
I guess, so are we, I mean, the motion does include central services, but there are concerns being raised about moving forward with that piece at this juncture. And I agree with those concerns. So are we, I guess, I don't feel comfortable with the motion as stated. I agree with Commissioner Mejia that the information technology piece is more straightforward. The central services piece does impact positions. And I don't feel like that information has been readily available to the public yet. So I do have concerns about moving forward with that. I also think that the central service impacts are relevant to some of the discussions we'll be having tomorrow. So I feel like it's a premature decision.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I guess I'll pop in and, I'll just say that I am okay moving forward with this motion. I think that, I've reviewed it. It has already been kind of laid out to us, and it seems like a positive move forward. So I'm in favor.
Okay, I'll call for the vote on this motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay, that motion carries 4-1. Okay. Next is joint animal services.
Thank you, Chair. This was an item I would consider it kind of a brainstorming item. But in the spirit of bringing ideas forward, there was a conversation and a kind of a history perspective provided that the county has during hard fiscal times reduced its contract with JASCOM. I believe that it's only in the last few years, a year, 2-3 years maybe, that it was restored to the full amount. And so in the spirit of bringing ideas forward, we wanted to say that this is a potential conversation to be had. And I'll leave it there to see if there's any commissioners.
The money, to clarify, the money comes from non-departmental. Is that the?
Yes, so this is part of for the commissioners' side, there are two aspects of cuts. There's a non-departmental, and then there's the commissioner's office, which is largely personnel costs. There is some travel and supplies and training in there. And so as part of meeting our cut, an idea was provided to use some of the JASCOM funding to help offset the need to reduce some on the personnel side. And then the other concept would be to use some of those dollars to go to emergency services. These are concepts. Ultimately, it's going to be for the board's decision, but use some of it for emergency services to help backfill some of the loss in the incident management staff, I believe, that is critical to when we're in emergency stance.
I want to provide a little bit of historical context here. The board, when I joined the board, we had a number of years of reduced field service. I was that was one of my first committees, so I learned a lot about JASCOM, and I thought it was a good organization. We had a lot of calls in my office from folks in the rural county that, barking dogs or whatever, things that the county wasn't paying for service. So they would often get referred to the sheriff's office, who didn't really have manpower to do that. So we were getting, Sheriff Snaza at the time was really asking us to do something. The sheriff wanted to reduce that burden on his office and asked us to do something. Commissioners, we didn't really have the money. There was 1 year where the budget was in pretty decent shape. We had a little bit of money to play with. And I remember it, Commissioner Mejia will remember, it was the very last decision, the very last thing. We really couldn't afford it, but we decided kind of as a pilot, let's see if we can get some savings from the sheriff's office by not having, it was a stretch, I think, it's fair to say, to restore that service. And I was kind of torn by it. I wanted to do it, but we didn't really have the money at the time, but we thought maybe there's going to be some corresponding sheriff savings, and maybe it'll fit. And we went ahead and did it. I think all three of the commissioners voted to do it after some kind of hemming and hawing. So we've had it for 3 years. There's been back and forth about the value of what we're getting. I don't want to get into all that. I just want to lay all that out just so people understand that to remove this funding would be really going back to exactly where we were like 3 or 4 years ago and had been for a decade. And we barely even made the decision to restore the funding. I think given the needs that we're looking at, you know, I'm supportive of this because I hate to do it on one hand, but we just have countervailing needs that I think are more pressing for the county at this time. But that's my 2 cents. Anybody else want to ask question or make a comment?
Yeah, I do.
Sure, Klaus.
So this one is obviously a really, really hard choice. I do feel like it's, let me see. I feel like the decision to cut a contract, like through an interlocal agreement that is funded through non-departmental to cover other costs that are associated with the general fund and the commissioner's office, kind of uses, and emergency services, it sort of uses JASCOM funds as like a slush fund for to fill in other county gaps. And I feel like that's not an appropriate use of these funds. I also want to just highlight that I don't know, a 50% reduction in county funding is huge. That's gonna have huge impacts on animal services. The county receives 42% of all field responses that comes from Thurston County. So that's really gonna reduce the level of service that we see in the county. It's also going to impact our partner jurisdictions. And you know, these decisions should be made jointly through discussions and collaboration with JASCOM. The interlocal agreement governs this body and states that any changes to the funding in the ILA should be made collaboratively. And I don't see that those steps have been taken. So I just feel like this is a huge step. 500,000 is a lot of money. We were kind of given a summary of what this money could potentially save as far as positions in the commissioner's office. And I just don't feel like that comparison is appropriate. I also see we have savings in these other areas. I think that we should look at the totals based on the decisions that we've made today before we decide to cut this like significant amount of money from JASCOM.
Commissioner Mejia.
Thank you. You know, this was one of my commissioner priorities when I added it on, and I also remember how hard the discussions were when we decided to do it. And I was part of the ILA, and I just want to emphasize one of the words that we said when we passed this is a pilot. We're going to see if we can afford it. And we made JASCOM aware of that when, you know, we passed this. Like it wasn't, you know, it was a pilot that we were going to try out and see, you know, if there were savings, if and see really, because it was a hard decision for the board at the time. I mean, it's not a slush fund. It's coming from, it's general fund money. Non-departmental fund is for services that go to, that's a county benefit. So non-departmental fund pays for all of our fees, but you know, that's general fund that goes into that budget. So, you know, it is still a general fund savings. And so for me, I'm also in support of doing this. You know, it is a very hard decision because it was something that I pushed so hard for, but when we're talking about our own staffing and our own positions and, you know, that carries a lot of value for me.
Commissioner Grant.
Yeah, so I guess, I think you just answered some of my questions I had, Carolina, because I guess for me, what was confusing on this being put on the agenda today was that, you know, I haven't seen this you know, I was kind of at first, I mean, until you just answered that, I was like, how did this just, you know, randomly appear on the, you know, I mean, how, at what point did we make a decision, you know, that, hey, we should look at some non-departmental contracts and then cut them. So I do appreciate, you know, Ty and Carolina giving that background, because that does help me understand that, you know, this is something that we recently, you know, added to, and that seems like it could be taken from. That makes sense to me. I guess I'm wondering though, at what point will all 5 of us as commissioners sit down and look at the rest of the other contracts? Because I guess I have a concern that of making a decision today of the amount of, like, saying $500,000, because it would seem to me, in my experience of, you know, going through exercises like this, that we would take a look at other things that might be listed in the non-departmental funds and as a comprehensive look, and then go, we could cut a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and then make the decision, you know, then make the motions that we're going to cut, you know, 300 from Jazzcom and 50 from something else, and, you know, something like that. So that, I guess that's where my mind, I just didn't quite understand how this just, you know, how and when is, I guess my question is, are we going to have a discussion about other contracts, you know, at some point in time, and when will that be happening? And, you know, I would be more comfortable making this decision after we had that conversation.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fournier.
I just push back on a couple things. First of all, we have been having this discussion. We got a list of the non-departmental funds just a couple days ago, and so we've had discussions. We have reviewed. We have gone over these things, and we've had lots of opportunity to ask for any follow-up or clarification. So this is not new information. This is just a part of an ongoing discussion in my mind. Calling it a slush fund, I think that's kind of a, you know, that's like an inappropriate way, because these are discretionary funds. It's as simple as that. These are general fund, non-discretionary, and it is our discretion on how those funds are allocated. And, you know, times change. We've heard some historic perspective on this contract that I think helps me make the decision. And you know, I'm in favor of the motion as it was presented. I think it's important to preserve emergency management, the positions that potentially could be saved in the commissioner's office through this reallocation are absolutely vital to ongoing operations. So I stand in favor.
Commissioner Grant, I saw you next, and then
Oh, I didn't mean to raise my hand again.
I wanted to jump in real quick on Commissioner Grant's point about, so in terms of other contracts, I mean, this is kind of a laundry list of good ideas. If staff saw something that they saw if they saw maybe a potential opportunity, they put it on. The auditor and treasurer raised a couple things. We threw them on. I had one that I threw on. Commissioner Mia, if you've got a contract you want the board to discuss, there's going to be a time where I'm going to open it up, because I've got a couple more things that didn't make this list. Like, everything's on the table, right? We're trying to find as much revenue as possible. So every contract that you think could yield, I mean, if staff thought it was a good idea to discuss, it would have been on here. If they didn't, that means that it's up to us or somebody else to kind of bring it to our attention. But yeah, definitely everything's on the table. Commissioner Mejia next.
That's basically what I was gonna say, Commissioner Grant, like if you, you know, looking through the non-departmental, if you saw something that you wanted, you know, to be discussed, you know, we're gonna be having, you know, while we're having budget discussions, it's, you know, just.
Through the years, we've discussed, I mean, I remember discussing WASAC fees. I remember discussing all sorts of things. I mean, there's things in there, but you have to decide what you think is really worth potentially pulling back from. Commissioner Klaus was next.
Thank you. I really feel like we need to do more before we make this decision. I feel like this is a significant decision to cut this in half. It's ambiguous, the amount, you know, I think that we've given other partners such as BHASO earlier this morning, we gave them the opportunity to come here and present the impacts. I feel like we should allow Jazzcom or Animal Services staff to come and do the same thing. I think that we really truly need to understand the impact of this before we make a decision. If we're going to have this on the agenda and it's gonna go through, it sounds like there's 3 commissioners at least in favor of this. I would ask those commissioners to please consider removing the dollar amount from this motion and allowing the county manager to engage with Joint Animal Services regarding reducing the county's contribution without putting a dollar amount. That dollar amount is huge. The magnitude of those impacts will be significant. Again, I just want to state Joint Animal Services is governed by an interlocal agreement with Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. The agreement is clear. Any change to funding shares must be done through JASCOM. And if it alters these terms, it needs to be done through a written amendment approved by all partners. A unilateral cut by this board would not only violate that process, it would also expose the county to service reductions for our own residents. JASCOM, unincorporated residents of Thurston County accounted for more than 40% of all field calls, which last year was over 1,300 responses. If we cut our funding in half, the ILA requires JASCOM to reduce our services proportionately, which means fewer patrols, fewer rescues, and fewer shelter options for the people who depend on us the most. This proposal is tied to saving positions in the commissioner's office, but these are 2 different funding streams. JAS contributions flow through non-departmental, which I understand, supports countywide services, while positions in the commissioner's office are budgeted directly through the commissioner's office. We haven't yet received a clear fund code analysis explaining whether it's even possible to swap one for the other. I understand it sounds like there's consensus among commissioners that this is appropriate, but I haven't seen the analysis that shows me that this is, legally a move that we can make. And then we also don't have the cost data for other possible reductions in the commissioner's office, including higher level positions. I've requested this information. I know Summer was on vacation and came back this week, so she has informed me that it'll take a couple days for her to provide me with the information on how much other staff positions cost in the commissioner's office. So I'm waiting for that information because I feel like there are other cuts that can be made to save this contract from being cut so much. And yeah, so for these reasons, I just can't support cutting our JAS contribution in half. But again, I can support a motion directing the county manager to confer with our JASCOM partners, identify legally compliant alternatives, and then return to the board with a complete set of options.
I'm going to respond and then Commissioner Fournier is up. And then, so I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of what you're proposing. I would, like in terms of impact, I guess the reason why I feel like I understand the impacts is because I lived it. I mean, I was as the JASCOM rep, all 3 commissioners, EAs, would send all animal calls to Thomasina, my EA, and we spent untold number of hours, which is why I was even willing to do this to begin with. I mean, we were inundated at times with animal service issues in the county. So I know exactly what the impacts are. It's true that the 500,000 is kind of just a rough guesstimate, and that number will need to be dialed in through revision of the ILA. So I mean, leaving that kind of open, but it's, I don't think inappropriate, but there's something else you said. Oh, just that, ultimately I'm balancing, there's an idea out there about applying it to commissioner positions, but you wouldn't have to do that. I mean, ultimately it might mean not shutting down the jail, not cutting a person at the court, I mean, there's a lot of impacts that we're faced with based on the presentations from our elected officials. And I'm just weighing all of those impacts that I heard versus, and everything you said is accurate in terms of potential impacts to animal services, but because I know what that looks and feels like, because I was here before we had the field service, I'm more comfortable with that than I am with some of the things I heard last Wednesday about what impacts to the jail and the courts could be, and the assessor's office. And so that's why I'm looking for every rock here. Commissioner Fournier, you're next.
Thank you. You pretty much set it for me. The historic precedent is there. And like Commissioner Mensah says, he's lived through it. So it's not as arbitrary as it might seem. And these are discretionary funds. So like, we don't need to delay or, drag this out with further analysis. These are actions that are important that in my mind, we need to be taking now.
County Manager, as to Commissioner Klaus's idea about not having a dollar amount, would that be a problem? Is this to say that
The county's contribution period.
to reducing the county's contribution to I guess what it would need to say is kind of to a service, to the previous service level. Because Sarah has actually told us that that'll have to be kind of calculated out in a way. I mean, it's not just exactly what, I mean.
What would be helpful to me is you give me a number to work with. I think the motion is important because you're directing the county manager to engage with Joint Animal Services, reducing the county's contribution to 500K. I'm engaging, we'll come back, there'll be a conversation, but I need a target to work with.
A target, okay, so approximately, I mean, obviously the exact number dials in, but we give you that target of reducing county's contribution to a number in the range of $5,000.
Approximately 500,000.
That also allows us for the other conversation we're having about what dollars do we have to work with to plug a number in. And then if we come back and board decides that it's gonna be a different number because of the service levels, that's your prerogative to do. And this item doesn't take that away from you.
Sure, I'm ready to make a motion.
One more comment from Commissioner Klaus and then I can entertain that motion.
Yeah, I want to just say a couple more things. So Commissioner Grant and I talked yesterday. We weren't aware that we were supposed to be bringing specific ideas for cuts today. So now that we know that, now that I know that, I do have things I'm considering, but I'm waiting on information from the budget team. I just want to be transparent about this, that these cuts to JASCOM have been proposed to save specific positions in the commissioner's office. There are 2 positions that are being considered. There's also emergency services, but we're getting really specific on what we're considering moving money around for. And
that was one commissioner's idea. I mean,
Right.
that's not a board. Really, we're just saying, do we want to take 500,000 out of the JASCOM contract and put it back so that it could be applied to other needs that we heard about last week? That's all this is about.
Yeah.
so.
Where it goes is a different discussion.
Different discussion.
Okay,
That
but
the
the
board
county
has to
manager
decide.
says that he's engaged. Have you reached out to Sarah? Is she aware that we're having this conversation today?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I think I'm either you misunderstood or I may have miscommunicated. I was just reading the motion saying that it's directing the county manager to engage.
Okay, but you haven't done that yet.
No.
I have serious concerns. I really do not want to put 500,000 or approximately 500,000. I think that we can direct the county manager to engage without putting a dollar amount, because it's not in the spirit of collaboration. It violates the terms of the interlocal agreement that says we're supposed to be working on this collaboratively. It impacts our partner jurisdictions. These conversations need to be had in a manner that allows for opportunity for collaboration versus directing the county manager to go into conversations starting with a specific dollar amount that is so significant. So I really hope that the board will consider the impacts and how this conversation will go if the county manager is going in there with a target of 500,000. That just seems to be a completely inappropriate amount to reduce this contract. I think that we need to be more thoughtful.
Well, it's not, I mean, just let me say, it's significant, but it's roughly the amount that we increased. I mean, so it's not just like coming out of nowhere and not tied to, like, if you asked me, like, what do you think that, that it might be 600 or 700, but it's somewhere in that range because we pretty much doubled the contract. We're at like 1.1 million or
But
something.
those conversations are said and done. It's not like we can take, because there's some precedent in the past, those conversations have been had. We have already had this conversation about JASCOM earlier this year and decided not to reduce it. We had this conversation a couple months ago.
Yeah, and I didn't know that the jail might be shutting down and that the courts may be shutting down and that the property tax collection system may be crippled and collapsing and elections won't be secure. I mean, that was a different conversation. Commissioner Mejia,
Promotion.
yes.
I would move to direct the county manager to engage with Joint Animal Services regarding reducing the county's contribution to 500,000,
Did you want to make that approximately?
approximately 500,000. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second, discussion on this motion, additional. Obviously, a lot's been said, but
I want to say adding the word approximately doesn't do anything. It doesn't appease any of the concerns that have been raised. It, you know, it doesn't change the motion whatsoever. I don't really understand why we need to direct the county manager to reduce it by a specific amount. What is the reason? What is the justification for asking him to go into these conversations with that amount?
so that we can then build into the model and have the discussions that we have to have later today and tomorrow and later this week about how to apply the decisions that we're making in terms of additional revenue. If there's no number there, it's just, we can't do anything with it. It would be ineffectual and it wouldn't even be worth having on the agenda today. Commissioner Grant.
Well, yeah, and I will just say this, I'll be voting no on this, you know, and simply just echoing kind of what I said earlier is that I did not know that, you know, I'm new to this process. No one explained to me that I was supposed to be bringing all of the cuts forward in the last week. I according to the budget calendar, those discussions were supposed to be happening in October. I didn't, you know, I just wasn't aware that, you know, so I definitely have ideas and I definitely am going to be bringing those forward. And so I just I won't be voting yes today because I believe that we need to have a more holistic and not ad hoc approach to cutting contracts. And so that's why I'll be voting no.
Sure.
Yes.
I agree with Commissioner Grant. I'm really waiting on specific information on the costs of 15 different positions in the Commissioner's office. We recently received some information from Summer, our budget manager, that lists the costs of vacant positions and filled positions that are being considered for cuts. And then at the bottom of the email, there are 15 remaining positions that don't have dollar amounts associated with them. I am waiting on those dollar amounts from Summer. She'll have those to me in a couple days. If this contract is being considered to cut in half so that we can save positions in the Commissioner's office, we need a full picture of what the costs of the Commissioner's office are. So I'm like pleading with the board, please do not do this today. Please do not reduce it in half. It's the magnitude of this cut will impact our residents in a way that it may be like unprecedented. I know you say that you have experience and you understand the impacts, but if you were in the JASCOM meetings, you would see the increase in field calls. It's increasing. So whatever experience you have in the past, it's even more significant now. So especially in Thurston County, our field calls, our service, you know, our services are just continuing to increase. So I really would like, if we're taking this contract and saying we're gonna cut it in half to save these specific positions, which equate to about 220,000, the two positions that we're talking about saving equates to 220,000, but yet we are talking about cutting this contract by 500,000. The other things that we're planning on saving with this money are ambiguous. You're talking about the jail, you're talking about elections, we're talking about emergency management. This is not a targeted reduction. This, you know, again, Commissioner Fournier says slush fund is an inappropriate term, but it truly feels like we're using this as a catch-all for all the other issues without making it a targeted approach and having a collaborative, you know, going into this conversation without this dollar amount. I just think that it is extremely inappropriate. There are other positions we can consider cutting, and we don't have a full picture yet. And it's going to take Summer just a couple days. She might have this information to me tomorrow. I don't know. It shouldn't hopefully take too long to find the costs associated with 15 positions and in the Commissioner's office and 3 in central services. That's the information I'm waiting on. I really hope the board will respect that I'm waiting on specific information that is associated with this exact decision. And I'm working on getting that information so that I can propose something different, and that can happen within a day. So I'm hoping like we can either, just scratch the dollar amount or put this motion on for tomorrow so that I have the information I need to make this decision.
Nothing's etched in concrete. We're trying to set up other sets of decision-making. If commissioners change their opinion, nobody's signing a new ILA with JASCOM tomorrow. I think there's a lot of latitude if something really significantly shifts to make an adjustment. If you convince, a majority of the board that this is the higher priority than other priorities. But we've got, this is set up in a series of cascading decisions. And I think that at this juncture, I'm looking to that revenue source to shore up other priorities. It's not a final decision, really. Commissioner Mejia?
Yeah, you covered the points very well, Chair. So I would like to give Sarah the opportunity, or somebody who represents Animal Services, the opportunity to come and talk to us about the impacts. We gave that opportunity to the BHASO. Why are we not giving that opportunity to this external partner? It doesn't make sense to me. Call for the vote.
Okay, I'm gonna call the Commissioner Fournier came off mute. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, that motion carries 3-2. Okay, item 2 says 26-27 biennial budget reduction review. Now, is there opportunity before we get to that? Well, first tell me what that's gonna look like, and then maybe there may be opportunity for additional items.
Sure. What we wanted to do, Chair, is go over the, Amy, this is scheduled till noon?
Until noon.
Okay. We wanted to go over the roll-up. It was requested by a couple commissioners to have a roll-up of all the presentations and the impacts of those presentations, what the reduction exercises that they presented equated to. That's what this is. And we also wanted to, we had time just to take a brief break to allow someone to calculate all of that, all the decisions that were made, so that we can come back and give a overall number. And that'll, I think, help inform knowing that number as we go through the department office by department office, for you to know where there's some wiggle room, get questions or things that you need to help inform, to come back tomorrow and look at how do we, with the number you now have created, set targets for the offices and departments in the general fund.
Commissioner Grant?
Yeah, and I did send a message out this morning about this, but it'd really be helpful to me if I could be getting this information in Excel when it comes out. I have a huge, when it comes to budget information, I work I've been working on a very large file, taking all this information. And I appreciate what that roll-up is and that it came out, but I really need to get it in Excel so that I can have it prepared for tomorrow's meeting.
Okay, County Manager agrees with that. There was a couple questions that came. In terms of tomorrow, can you lay out where we're like, what we're gonna be in terms of the budget stuff, what we're addressing tomorrow, what's teed up? I don't have my tomorrow's agendas in front of me.
No problem. The goal for tomorrow was to take the conversation we had today, take the where departments and offices arrived at on their on the reduction exercise, and then figure out what the delta was to determine what decisions the board wanted to make as far as restoring potential funding to offices and departments. Our ultimate desire for tomorrow would be that the board would decide on an overall for office and departments what their general fund target is going to be. From that, we need to communicate that out to offices and departments, and they need to begin to make the adjustments in their budget accordingly, so that we can enter all that information in time for the 26-27 budget process.
Yeah, and I've said this before, but it's a different process this year because of this reduction exercise. It's front loaded. Commissioner Grant's correct that usually we're doing things in October because budgets have been done, and then there's some additional requests, and we kind of evaluate those requests, and then it's just easy to, it's in, or it's out, and that's it. And that all happened in October, but because of what we're doing this year, folks have not even been able to prepare budget without knowing exactly where the board's gonna land on these reduction targets. So we're having these decisions in September that often would have been in October. So that's just a little bit of a unique thing. I had a couple other questions. I don't know if other Commissioner Grant, go ahead.
No, I just keep forgetting to lower my hand.
All right, no problem. I guess there was a couple other questions I had. I don't know if any of the commissioners had questions about sort of when I talked about rocks to uncover, like other rocks that we have that weren't on this list. Is this a good time to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so go ahead, Commissioner Mejia. Commissioner Fournier, you want to go first?
Yeah, am I on? So a rock that I would like some consensus on looking under is to direct the county manager to look into the cultural access sales tax. I'm not the most confident in us passing a levy anytime in the near future. And so I want to, and we talked about it more, I want to look at all possible things I can accomplish, and the cultural access sales funds can be used to help out our fair, do things with our parks, engage in economic development. And
You're breaking up, Commissioner Fournier. I think we caught the gist of it, but yeah, you started to really break up there.
I would be in support of looking under the CABT. The reductions to our parks was a big concern to me.
Cultural access.
Yeah, and seeing if that could be a possibility to do. I also have another one
Go ahead.
that I didn't see in this, and that was the proposal from the auditor's revenue while she was making the presentation, which was bill number, I think it was 5018.
Yeah, 5018.
But that, if that is additional revenue that is coming through to the county, I think it needs to be accounted for in one way or another.
Remind me what that was about.
That was the new cut that the state is giving through licensing revenue.
It was related to gas. It was getting a portion of the gas tax, I believe.
Can you restate what it was? I'm sorry.
It was 5018.
18.
So the revenue would go into the general fund?
Well, that's kind of what the auditor mentioned, that this was new revenue that, was coming in, but and it was passed this year, and it was going to start January 1st, 2026. Let me look at my notes for the auditor.
I think it was ESSB 5814, new sales, new state
5814.
sales tax on services.
5814.
Thank you.
Front EA what?
ESSB,
Thank you.
and do you recall the information that I received from WASAC on how the projections were created and the fiscal notes were created from DOR?
Yeah, we can research that and bring that back to the board. If there's board consensus, I think we're looking at what's the list you want to put up on the board. So what rocks are you throwing out there for us to turn over?
Those were the two.
Commissioner Grant.
Just okay, just a second. I am trying to get to my file. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I am very clear that there was no agenda item on the list today that said bring the list of rocks to uncover, and that is really frustrating because I would have come fully prepared. And that, okay, so I'm just looking at a file on my phone, and I have a list of things that I wanted to make sure that we looked at. According to WASAC, I think I got this from WASAC, but House Bill 1791 which is the real estate tax flexibility. I want to understand what that's going to do. House Bill or Senate Bill 5801, which is the motor vehicle fuel tax. Senate Bill 5814, which is new services subject to retail sales use tax. All of those may affect our budget, and I want to make sure that I understand each of them fully before making any major more decisions, because each of them could bring income in one way or another. And I don't have my other list that is of individual positions and things like that, I have an entire list.
Commissioner Grant, like, it's not just today, right? Like if there's things that you look at later on and you're like, I would like to look at this, right? Like, it's not just like bring all your rocks today. This is an ongoing throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks. So whatever you're able to find, if it's, later on, like it's, I know that.
I know, I just, it's hard for me because I work and we have a budget calendar and and for me, I just need process. And so we don't have process, and for the commissioners, we don't have process. And so it gets really frustrating for me because I like to be prepared and it's been a hard day. So those are the things that I have on my list.
I know that one of the things you mentioned was the new sales taxes things, and we already, I mean, we have looked into that, and I think Summer or Leonard went to Wasac to find out what was going on with that, and we were advised that Wasac was looking at that across all the counties because it's something that's new, and we were basically said it's very speculative what we'll get, and we were advised not to project any revenue for 2026 if things. Once we can get some concrete numbers in 2026, we may be able to build it into 2027. But that was the advice we were given based on the follow-up that we directed on that. We've been talking about that one for a few weeks. And
yeah, sorry, I just have that list in front of me, and so I don't have my notes.
yeah, okay, no problem. Just so everybody hears that, because that was one that we discussed with, I first heard about it when we met with the auditor. We were going through a whole bunch of ideas, and so we had a follow-up from that meeting with the auditor, and that's what we learned. So my question was just a couple of random things that have come up. Well, Commissioner Mejia, you had talked about the public safety sales tax and whether, was that?
Oh, yeah.
We were just, I guess it's a summer question, but we were just wondering when we were, our COLAs for the new contracts for law enforcement, to have we maximized the ability to use public safety sales tax for any of those expenses?
They are applied to the new deputies that have.
Only the new deputies, but existing deputies.
Those are hitting the general fund, and that is due to the maintenance of effort agreement that was established.
But the maintenance of effort agreement set a floor number, specific number.
$26,410,000.
And to the extent that these are driving that number above, they could.
Yes.
I know there was debate about what the propriety of that, but
I would like to look into that, yeah.
I mean,
Definitely look into it. Yeah, we'll add it to the list.
it would be a significant, I mean, like I say, I don't think we would want to do that like as a, I think we decided not to do that as a hardline policy forever, no matter what. But in this particular, as a one-time, sort of shortfall, not at one time, but in this one situation, I think it's something that it just came up and I didn't know. I thought what you said was right, but if my recollection of the discussion is accurate, and I think it is, that there was legal latitude, that was one thing, and there was like, well, the spirit of this or that was another thing, and I mean, there was different flavors of that conversation, nuances to that conversation, I should say.
I'll be happy.
I just want to make sure we've looked at every rock and what so to speak. So that's one. A second one was, this is something that always came up in previous budget cuts, and I don't remember talking about it this year yet, was we always just automatically build in non-represented employee COLAs. But that's been on the table in the past. I don't know if that's something we would want to address, but it's just, again, something the board should at least have talked about and decided not to do or not to do. I remember that being in the $700,000 range. Am I correct that that's built into the budget?
It is built into the budget, so I'm happy to look at both of those things and send you that information.
Commissioner Grant?
Thanks for bringing that up, because that was on my list of things to look at. The other thing we have not talked about at all is the idea of furloughs. I mean, there was a time at, working for the state that we had to make a decision to give staff extra days off. And, I think at one point in time we had a presentation where we actually ended up passing it we did it, but where we took 2 days away on pay for the year and added an extra day. So staff ends up with 3 days of vacation and 2 less days in pay. And so that's another thing that I wish we would consider or look at least get a number amount on.
That's a good question, Commissioner Grant. I had this has come up in previous cuts, so I've in my one-on-ones, I've had multiple conversations with the county manager about it. What he said, I don't want to speak for him, but he said that obviously he was kind of crunching numbers on that and, was of the mind that it really didn't save a lot. It caused certain types of issues. That's what we had always decided ourselves in previous budget cuts, that it just didn't seem to fit or work very well. But
Yeah, and I think that
it's certainly something that we touched on.
ongoing reduction in staff hours versus what Commissioner Grant is mentioning of you cut folks a couple days in a year period. And they can both be called furloughs, but we can definitely look at what she specifically mentioned, because that's more targeted. That's like, we can say for this year, we're gonna cut everyone 2 days and there could be a savings to the county, and effectively folks could, if they have the leave time, they can use their leave balances. But we can look at that.
I would like to look at those.
The ongoing furlough component does not yield the type of savings that is needed with the cut size that we have.
I just want to make sure that we are given the opportunity to review that data.
Okay, sounds like that Commissioner Mejia is also interested in seeing that.
Yes.
And then, the last piece, and this may be on tomorrow's agenda, the road fund. Just so that we have an overall understanding, and that's tomorrow.
Tomorrow's
Okay, so road fund and what the options are there and the situation there is something that I want to be able to tell our offices and departments that we've touched on. We have new commissioners. And we need to look at every possibility. So if anyone, Commissioner Grant, great to hear that you've got a list too. So let's just make sure that we're touching on those things to see if they're good ideas as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Maybe not right now, but as quickly as possible.
Can I do a roundup of the
Yeah.
items? And whether we want to go through them all and give thumbs up on all of them, or one by one. The cultural access tax, we have SB 5814, HB 1791, SB 5801, public safety sales tax, COLA shift. We have non-represented COLAs and a furlough 2 days a year.
Can you repeat the bill numbers, please?
Oh, sure. SB 5814, HB 1791, SB 5801.
Okay. And then the public safety sales tax and the COLA shift, are those two separate things or is that one item?
Oh, one item.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I would just reiterate what Commissioner Mejia said. If commissioners have ideas, please just let us know. And this is a iterative process as we go through. And it doesn't stop even as we approve the 26-27 budget. We're going to be looking as an organization for every single efficiency that we can find. And it's just, it's a time that we're in, and it's our commitment.
Can I just read off a couple other items that the county manager was requested to provide, just to make sure you might have it on your list? I wrote down that somebody asked for the dollar amount for TST funded positions. I think I asked for that, and you said that you could give that to me, or somebody could give that to me.
Yep.
Also the information in Excel, as Commissioner Grant requested. I know that that's extremely helpful, so I wanted to make sure that that's also on the list to provide the Excel sheet, the budget information to the board. I also have the furloughs, which you mentioned. There was one more, I think. When we were talking about the ARPA funds, the county manager said that he would email a summary of that to the board, and it sounded like a summary would be sent for each of the motions that were passed today. Is that right?
A roll-up of the decisions that were made based on the cost saving.
Okay. And that'll be coming later this afternoon?
As soon as we're able to put it together.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that the end of this morning?
Yes, I think we're at time.
So then we'll be back at 1. And what's on the agenda? That's not in front of me, sorry.
It is a comp plan review of the housing and environmental review chapters and RAB.
Do we need to have any follow-up added to that? Did we get far enough this morning with where you wanted to get, county manager?
I think we made great progress, but we didn't go through this sheet in a level of detail. And that's gonna be an important part for tomorrow's conversation. So if we have time after today, after the presentations, I'll leave it to you, Chair, to say, or we can just save this for tomorrow.
It would be, so this is Rachel, sorry guys. It would be really helpful if we could save that for tomorrow. Once I'm able to get that in Excel, like, just because it's detailed information and I won't be able to really look at it while on this little tiny phone. I mean, and while I'm at this thing today. So that's just kind of my take on that. If we could wait till tomorrow, it would be really helpful for me.
Okay, Commissioner Grant, I'm sorry we had to plow through some stuff this morning. I thank you for participating. I think that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot everybody's chewing on, so I will try to accommodate that, what you're asking. And cover, get that, we'll deal with the printed agenda, budget follow-up. We'll just start in tomorrow morning. Hit it hard. So thank you for participating as you're able to. I know you're under difficult circumstances. Okay, I think that's the end of the agenda this morning, so we're adjourned.
There were 3 items.